Joe Rogan Podcast. Check it out.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Train by day, Joe Rogan Podcast by night, all day.
Good to see you, sir.
Thank you for having me, brothers. Big honor.
Thank you. An honor for me, too. Very excited about this. Very
Yes,
excited
sir.
to talk to you. There's so many different things to discuss. So, do you know what is going to be released? So, supposedly, this is the week of some kind of disclosure. Can you give us any insight as to what's going on?
Oddly enough, I got a call that tomorrow at 3 o'clock, I'm going to be briefed over the phone by, I think one of Hegseth's top dogs is going to go over some stuff with me that they've got, and I have no earthly idea. I don't want everybody to get their hopes up. I don't have a lot of faith in our government. President Trump's always been great to me. He's never lied to me, but I don't know that he knows the right questions to ask and the right people to talk to, because, I mean, this thing's been covered up at least since 1947, and I just don't think they don't give up that easy. The war pimps at the Pentagon and everybody else, they just don't give up that easy.
How did you come to understand all this stuff? Like, what was your understanding of it before you got into government?
I had pretty cool parents. Right now, they would. Daddy was an old World War II Marine, and Mama flew an airplane during the Second World War. I mean, they were They were badasses. They were good Christian people, but my daddy was a stone cold killer. I mean, he was the real deal. He was on Peleliu and Okinawa in the Marine Corps, and of course, Mama's oldest brother Roy got killed fighting the Nazis, and Mama did her part. Just a little country girl, didn't have electricity till she's a senior in high school. So I've kind of lived the American dream, but they would let me, they'd let me get bloodied up, and then they would patch me up and let me go. I could ride my bike to the library, or the library if you're from East Tennessee, and it was, about a mile from the house, and they'd go in there and they'd have these books set up, and they had all this stuff on, all this wild stuff, and there was a book on UFOs, and I just picked it up and started reading it. I probably wasn't, 7 or 8 years old, and I just always followed it. The magazine articles, and I'd go out at night and hope to see a UFO. Never did, never have, until some of the briefings I've been in. But and then I'm walking down the street, and can I mention another news source? Is that okay?
Yeah.
I was walking down the street, and TMZ there was a guy there, this black fella, his name's Colin. He's a buddy of mine. He doesn't work for them anymore, but he was filming, and he said, "Hey, Congressman," he said, "you want to make a comment on the UFO thing?" He couldn't get anybody to comment. And I said, "Well, sure." I said, they're going to tell you they're going to issue you a report, and it's going to be loaded, and everybody's freaking out. It's going to be the greatest thing. It's going to be total disclosure. And then they're going to put something out. It'll look like somebody shot it with a dadgum 12 gauge. It's just going to have holes in it. It's all redacted. And I said, and they're not going to put it out this week. It'll be weeks later. And that's exactly what they did. They had a report I felt like had some information in that was new to the public, and they did what they always do. They hid it, covered it up, and then everybody saw that interview. And I said on it, that's
the one we were talking about, bases in the ocean?
No.
Different one?
That's a different one. It's just totally different. I mean, this is just out on the street corner. And then I started getting calls from people literally all over the world. I mean, I've talked to legislators in Russia over this issue, and then people stop me on street corners and say, "Hey, man, I really appreciate you going for disclosure." I have doctors tell me this. I have lawyers, engineers. I have military people that have seen things that they can't describe. I've had members of Congress. There's a few bullies in Congress. They'll make fun of me and say smart aleck stuff, but put it out there to your people. It's over 55% of the American population feels like we're not alone. I mean, seriously, you go out there and look at those. Every night, my dogs, they got to take a leak. They never want to take a leak at like 9 o'clock. It's always 3 o'clock in the morning. I look at those dadgum stars, man, and the light from those stars left there before the time of Christ. And the light from some of those stars, the stars have already combusted. I mean, they're not even there anymore. Light years to us is something that's hard to understand. And we are just, one grain of sand on a billion beaches. And I still don't think we're the best that God can do. I mean, I just can't imagine we're his shining, we're the one they put on the mantle. Oh, look, he made humans. Well, we've kind of screwed things up. So and I read my Bible, and a lot of the Christian folks knock me. They talk about it's demons, and I say, well, I'm good with Jesus. I'm not worrying about demons. I'm not going to worry about that. I don't think they're demons. Why would they? They don't have to fly around in some craft to
Right.
It's just, to me, it's hard to imagine. But the underwater thing was, I was getting briefed by it was a former admiral came into my office, and Joe, it was a very friendly conversation, and I'm always a little couched I hold back a little bit because I think there's a psyop going on with some of these departments. I was briefed by one of our alphabet agencies not long ago, and the final thing was somebody said, well, why don't we got more information? He says, we just don't have the funding for that, Congressman. And, it's and I know they're reading the polling data, and they're saying, well, let's shake loose the money tree for us, and that's part of it too. And I warn people about that. But I guess in a nutshell, that's pretty much it.
So when you first got in, how long have you been in government for?
Well, 8 years in Congress. I was in our state legislature in Tennessee 16 years, and then I was county mayor for 8 years.
So was it when you got into Congress that you first started getting inside information about what's going on?
Yeah.
So that was that 8 years ago, or like when was that?
It's probably 6 years ago, 5 or 6. No, let's see. It was during Trump's first administration, so it would have been about 8 years ago.
And do you remember what it was? Do you remember how you were introduced to it?
Yeah. We just raised total hell about it, and then
why?
Because it's a cover-up. Nobody would give us information.
Well, what made you think it was a cover-up? Why did you think that there was information?
I guess I just don't trust the government. I've been in government most of my life, and I just don't trust it. I
understand that, but was there something that led you to want to pursue this particular subject?
No, just it kind of pursued me. After I did that TMZ interview, people started calling me, and then people would I would get phone calls from people from.
Right, but the TMZ interview was fairly recently, right?
No.
No, it wasn't?
That was one that was what started it all. It was 7 or 8 years ago. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I didn't explain that
that's
very
okay.
well.
But you had an interest from the time you were a child, and
Right.
then getting into government. What was the first introduction where you had an idea that there's something going on?
When I started asking questions, and we just get to run around.
What kind of questions?
Like, what is this? Where are you seeing these things? And we would get people. I had an interesting meeting in my office with some people that were nationally known, and they came by to see me, and they just wanted to talk to me about it. And I was, and they started telling me things, and then I had a group come to my house. I said, y'all just come by the office in D.C. and we'll talk. And they said, we don't feel comfortable doing that. And they came by the house, and they said, can we hook up to your television? And I said, well, sure. And they hooked up the computer to it, and they were showing me objects that were flying at. And granted, I'm not an astrophysicist by any stretch of imagination, but they were showing me things that were flying at speeds that were just that nothing compares. And the angles that they were taking would literally, and I've said this before, and it grosses people out, but it would turn you or me into a ketchup package. I mean, you go this way, and then boom, you're going this way, and we have no capability of any of it. And now I've been briefed so many times on different groups. We scrub missions because these things are out there. And then we tell everybody that's involved to keep your mouth shut. And then if you're a pilot and you come back and say, hey, I've seen this, you immediately pulled off the flight line. I'm not a pilot or military person, but flight line is what I call it. They're not able to fly, and they're given a psych evaluation. And they're given an 8-hour, they call it a debriefing. I've been told by some of the officers that have been involved, it's really just an interrogation. And then you got that hanging on your record. And,
so it influences them to stop asking
they just
questions.
Keep their mouth shut. I literally had a guy tell me, Joe, that he said his recorder, it was an older style plane, and I think he said it was close to his right knee. And when he got that on his recorder, he started smashing it with his right knee to discombobulate it so that it wasn't even, because he didn't want anything. He did not need it. He saw it. He didn't need it on his record. Even if he saw it and it was on a dadgum tape, they drag you in. And so, myself, Luna, and Matt Gaetz went down to Florida to be briefed by. Matt was told that some pilots had seen some things and they had some photographs, and so we go down there and again we go in. I told Matt, I said, Matt, they don't give up this stuff easy. We're going to go down there, and I have a bad feeling they're going to turn us out. Well, we went down there, and Joe, they briefed us on some very serious issues that they were dealing with the Chinese and communist infiltration and things going on around Florida in the ocean, but they did never have they wouldn't bring the pilots in. And Matt said, "Hey, I understand all this, but this is not why we came down here." And Matt's you can say what you want to about Matt Gaetz, but he's a great orator and he's a great attorney, and he just started flailing on them. And he told them, he said, "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to jerk me around." And I said, "I'm going to subpoena you all. We're going to call you all back to Washington." And I remember looking over in the corner at the suits, and I called them spooks because they were obviously some sort of military intelligence or CIA. And I leaned over to Matt and I said, "The spooks are getting nervous, brother," because they were kind of shifting around. And they shut us down. They said, "No, we're not going to do it." And Matt said, "I'm calling whoever Big Air Force was." Matt was on one of the military committees, and he called. And an hour later, they stuck us up in this room and had microphones under the desk. I remember Luna reached under and unplugged them. And they had a nice fruit tray that you paid for it, taxpayers. Thank you very much. So I went into it like a jackass eating sawbriars. I was just eating. I didn't care. And so finally it came back in an hour, and the guy says, "I don't know who you all called, but you're going to get your briefing. They're bringing the pilots in." And literally, they brought these pilots in, and they were in their flight gear, and they had just come out of the planes, and they were the ones, and they described things, and it's been reported now. It's been reported in public, but it was these craft that were hovering for extended periods of times and could shoot straight up at incredible speeds that we don't have capabilities of doing. And those are the kind of thing. And too, this was military people. These were top people. These are like the equivalent, not, they just some of our top people. And I know folks are going to say, well, it's probably the Russians. Well, if it's the Russians, dadgummit, they wouldn't be tied up down in Ukraine for how many years? And Putin's such an egomaniac, he'd fly a saucer to Pennsylvania Avenue, get out and probably wrestle Trump in the front yard or something, bare-chested, ride a unicorn or something, I don't know. If it's China, they'd own us, even more than they already do. And then people say, well, it's ours, Burchett. It's just ours. They don't want to release it. Well, think about this. President Trump, and he should have, and I give him great credit for that pilot that got knocked down over in Iran, we spent untold millions of dollars to bring that cat home, and we should have, because it sends a message to our enemies and it sends a message to our fighting men and women that we're not going to leave you behind, as many presidents have done many times. There's no way on God's green earth that they would risk a $500 million aircraft with something flying around it and risk those guys' life and all that training to put these guys in harm's way. And that's exactly what they're doing. I mean, these things are buzzing cockpits. I mean, it's not an everyday occurrence. It's in certain areas, and that's where the deep water thing comes in, the deep water bases. I was sort of misquoted. I was just telling what I was told, and but it makes a lot of sense that these deep water areas are where we see a lot of sightings, and we've seen craft underwater that do something over 200 miles an hour that are on the sonar pickup are as big as a dadgum football field. And the best we don't have anything big as a football field. Maybe in length, but not underwater anyway. And the best we can do is maybe upper 30 mile an hour, maybe something like that. I don't know. But 200 miles an hour, that's just out of the question. And these things don't have a heat signature, and I hope though that they release some of the footage that we've seen and some that we haven't, that we've been rumored that's out there. What I'm afraid though, it's going to get so sanitized and it's going to get cleaned up. I mean, even Obama, he said, yeah, there are aliens out there. And then in a recent interview I saw just last week or so, he's backed up on that. Oh, I was just kidding. You know? And
I saw Trump when he was getting interviewed. He said Obama shouldn't have said that because it's classified. He goes, but I might release it. I might make it unclassified.
And I hope he does. And I told him that. I talked to the president about it, and I said, Mr. President, it's like layers of an onion. You just keep peeling it back. And I hope he does, because
he might be the only one that would ever
only
do
one
it.
with enough guts.
Yeah.
Only one, because he's not beholden to that bunch. All they've done is try to bury him.
Right.
So.
Yeah. So when these men came to you and they hooked up the computer to your television and showed you, did they tell you why they wanted you to see this stuff?
They just thought I should know about it because I was asking the right questions. And then shortly after that, I was go ahead.
I'm sorry. Were you told that you were not supposed to tell people about this? Were you?
No, but it's interesting. I had that deep throat moment. Not the porn version,
right.
the Richard Nixon moment. Where I was walking in the tunnel one day, and a person came up to me, and it's always a friend. It's always a friend that does this, and said, it was just the strangest conversation, and I'll never forget it, because he said, Burchett, he said, you're really pushing on this UFO thing. And I go, yeah, I am. He said, do you really think we need to do this? And I just kept listening. When I was a young man, I'd have run my mouth and said, oh, shut up. But I listened to what he said. He said, this could upset the religious community and all this other. Some of this stuff just left unknown, And I said, no, it's not. The government has no right to decide what I can and cannot understand or handle or see. And to me, and every time, Joe, let me tell you what they're going to do. I had a 2-page bill for disclosure, and Chuck Schumer had one that was 60 pages, I believe. And he modeled his after the Kennedy assassination committee release, which we're over 60 years into that, and we still they haven't released everything that on President Kennedy getting shot. And that's what they wanted to model this dadgum thing after. Mine was 2 pages long. Of course, mine didn't get anywhere. I was told by a member of leadership, they come and sit with me. I call it center's row. I sit on the back row, second from the back on the aisle. Everybody gets in trouble. They come sit with me sometimes. And I was told by a member of leadership that that the intelligence community was unhappy with what I was doing. And then I got a phone call from a former member of President Trump's staff who told me that I needed to I forget his exact terminology, but he said, you need to get some bodies around you. And so, and I don't know what that means. I'm the 435th most powerful member of Congress, Joe. So, they bump me off, and it's going to be like there'll be one tear shed on the House floor. That'll be because I owed somebody $10. I didn't pay them back, and then they'll move on to the next guy. So,
well, I'm sure you're aware of this narrative about the missing scientists and scientists that have turned up dead and been killed.
100%. And that's real. I think I have a theory on that. All right, I know it's a little dangerous to throw these things out, but I was on maybe Fox one time, and I just came up with this. I say your family's mobbed up, okay, and y'all own a nice Italian restaurant, and it's world renowned, and you're busting at the seams, and you're franchising and putting out cookbooks and everything. You got this one chef who's the kingpin of all of it. But you're afraid he's talking to your competitors. Now, you don't bump him off. What you do is you rough up a few of the bus boys, and that sends a quick dadgum message that you need to shut your mouth. And timing is everything, and nothing happens by accident in Washington, D.C. To me, I think the timing is it's uncanny. You got a president, we've had these hearings in Washington. You have a president that says he's going to release stuff. And all in that same time frame, before and after that, you're having some of these high-ranking officials disappear. And to me, nobody disappears in this country unless they want to disappear. There's cameras everywhere, and to me, it's just it reeks of deep state sewer.
UFC 328 is here, and DraftKings Sportsbook makes every fight night mean more. When a fighter steps into the octagon, everything they've built comes down to this moment. Stars explode, stars finish, and with DraftKings, you're ready to move when they do. Bet fighter props, bet live. From the opening bell to the final horn, every strike, every takedown, every finish attempt matters. And DraftKings Sportsbook keeps you connected as the action unfolds. New DraftKings customers bet $5 and you'll get $100 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code Rogan so you're ready for the moment. That's code Rogan for new DraftKings customers to turn $5 into $100 in bonus bets instantly. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-MY-RESET. New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino in Kansas, wager tax pass-through may apply in Illinois. 21 and over in most states. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos. Limited time offer.
Yeah, I thought one of the things that I thought of is one of the subjects that these people they're all working on different things, but they're working on alternative energy sources.
Yeah, that's the I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's okay.
But that's what ties them together, I think. And two, one of them's spouse said, "Oh, my husband or wife or whatever never did anything with UFOs." Well, they don't talk about it. It's actually.
Right.
It's a pretty close-knit group, and I always remember this. I knock on doors. That's how I got elected. Nobody really does. There's not a lot of people like me that come from a family of public educators that get elected to Congress, all right? Most of my contributions are $25, and somebody wraps a Bible verse around it and tells me they're praying for me. The big boys, they're always for me the day after the election, all right? They always, "Oh, come, we got you a check, and we were with you all along." I always say, "Yeah, I felt it right there towards the end, you know." But I'm knocking on this guy's door down in Farragut, and he's putting his flag out. He's an older gentleman, and I said, "Hey, brother, did you serve?" And he said, "No, it's East Tennessee, And he kind of held his head down. "No, I didn't. I didn't." And he said, I worked at Oak Ridge. And I said, "Brother," "my daddy was on Okinawa when they dropped the bomb. They were getting ready to invade mainland Japan." I said, "If my mom and daddy were alive today, they would hug you because they put it together." And he told me, he said, "Tim," before I left, he said a funny thing. He said, "My wife worked there too, and she worked on I think he said he was a fuse or something, and I worked on the timer on the atomic bomb." He said, "And I didn't know what she did the entire time that we were working there." That's called compartmentalization, and that's what you have here. And if I can elaborate just a little bit more, you're familiar with FOIA. You're a member of the Media Freedom of Information Act. And it means I can request from a federal agency, the FBI, they probably wouldn't give it to me, but any information. But I can't go after like Ford Motor Company, okay? So what they've done is they've given this information, whatever, if it's craft, it's material, if it's bodies, I don't know. I have my suspicions, but they've given them there's 4 or 5 major contractors that you see that are always the ones that are putting it out there. They're missile defense systems. They're coming up with this new metallurgy, these new propulsion systems. And I think that whatever they had, they gave to them early on, and they're the ones, but they're so far disconnected from the government that I can't touch it. And the people that are working on it, there's nobody alive around Roswell or any of that stuff that was in and around those years that's still alive or still working. So all those people are gone. That's the best secret you can keep if you tell somebody and they die. And that's exactly what they've done. And we've been given places, addresses, and things, and everybody says, "Oh man, you need to get out to Area 51, Burchett, and see what's out there." There ain't nothing at freaking Area 51. As soon as we announce where we're going, the U-Haul vans would have already been there and left, And so what it's going to take is it's going to take a scientist or somebody that's going to have to walk out of one of those dadgum labs before they're allowed to commit suicide by shooting themselves in the back of the head 10 times with a shotgun or something. And so...
Do you know the Bob Lazar story?
I do. I've never met Bob. I know a buddy of mine, I guess, friend of mine, I think sort of broke that story.
George Knapp?
Yeah, Knapp.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Haven't slept much in the last 48 hours. But, yeah, George, I met him through all this, and I mean, it's a big honor because I grew up watching George Knapp. He's a cool guy.
He's awesome.
I love him. He comes to my office, and we hang out, and I mean,
that's great.
People get, they get kind of starry-eyed when they see somebody like yourself or Kid Rock or somebody, but for me it was George Knapp because because I'd ask him stuff. He goes, "Yeah, that was a report I did when," and because
Yeah, he's very careful about what he says too. He's not a guy who says anything that he can't.
And he documents it.
Yeah.
You ever seen his files? I mean, it's just a myriad of files.
He's very even keeled and fair in the way he assesses things. He's not hyperbolic. The way he describes things is like as clean and as accurate as possible.
He's not trying to sell T-shirts, really.
Right.
I mean, he's a true journalist. I wish other people would look at a guy like that and say, that's the way we need to go with journalism.
A real journalist who didn't start off with this whole UFO thing. He didn't want to do. I mean, he was an actual just regular journalist until Bob Lazar contacted him.
Yep.
And that story, I've had Bob on a couple of times. In fact, this is how popular this idea is in the American zeitgeist. The Bob Lazar episode of this podcast is the most viewed episode that I've ever had on YouTube.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's got 66 million views right now.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, a guy who's just talking about how he used to work at S4, Area 51 Site 4, where he was back engineering UFOs.
Right.
And there's a new documentary that he just did called S4, where they use CGI and they made models of the craft and they made him, like they brought him, they used this technology that makes it look like he's a lot younger.
Yeah.
And they showed like what his experience was. They completely recreated it and it down to a T. And Jamie and I got a chance to watch it with him, with Bob and Luigi, the guy who made the film. And watching how emotional he gets when he's in the room, he's like, "This is it. This is this freaks me out. It like brings me back because we're talking about 1988, 1989 when all this was going on." And
he really, the last report I saw, somebody interviewed him at his house. I mean, he had like a mid-'80s Corvette or something. He hasn't cashed in on it like everybody else seems to do.
No, he hasn't made any money off of it, and he's still just a legitimate scientist. He runs United Nuclear Labs. He's, that's what he does, and he's a brilliant guy, and doesn't want the attention. It was very difficult to get him to come back in a second time. And he wanted to wait until this documentary was out and come in and talk again, but he got freaked out. He drank a lot of whiskey. He was like, he gets weirded out by it all. It's all like to him, the whole experience was very surreal and strange. And
well, you got to figure he's the one that escaped from all of it and is still alive. And somehow he got out and was able to do it before they could silence him. They tried to discredit him, said he didn't work there, and then I think he produced check stubs even.
Well, not just that. They tried to pretend that he never worked at Los Alamos Labs, but he was on the employee roster. There was a lot of stuff going on where they tried to discredit him, but he went public because he was afraid they were going to kill him. Because the initial one, he gave a fake name and he was a silhouette and he told his story, but then his home got broken into, his car was getting broken into, he got shot at on the highway. It got real weird, and so he said, look, I've got to go public. Like, it might be the only way to protect myself, and he told the whole story, and he hasn't deviated from that story. Mm-hmm. And that's what's really kind of crazy because it's been, 40-something years or close to?
These guys, they ask those questions, they always, oh, yeah, well, and then they say, was it red? No, it's green. And then they were adamant that it was red 10 years ago.
Right.
Everything about him has been that I've seen, there was a documentary on him and they asked somebody to analyze him, was he telling the truth or not? And he said, I think he's telling the truth.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like he's lying. But, I mean...
Of course, I'm in the business. I'm in Congress, so yeah. He's an amateur. We're professionals up there, brother. You only think you can tell a lie.
Yeah, but they're not very good at it. The people in Congress that are liars. The problem with liars is they don't really have a good understanding of the truth. Because if you're lying all the time and you're forging this fake narrative, people see that. And so that when you try to say it as the truth, it doesn't come off like the truth. There's a feeling that people get when they talk to you. Now, there's some real crazy people that could just lie, like really insane. But generally they lie about a bunch of stuff. They don't just have one lie from 1989.
The term pathological comes to mind.
Yes.
You know, that bass was this big. You know?
Well, his story, though, one of the interesting things is he was talking about the ways in which the craft moved, and then decades later, we have footage that shows these crafts rotating in the direction that they want to travel, then zooming off. And then, of course, there was the Commander David Fravor incident off the coast of San Diego in 2004. And if that was our technology, the thing that puzzles me is if we had something in 2004 that can go from 50,000 feet above sea level to sea level in under a second, I can't imagine that 22 years later there would be no advances that would have leaked through into mainstream technology.
Well, the energy, just along that, the energy. It's we'd heat our homes in the winter and cool them in the summer. But then again, I always throw out the war pimps. I'm not my daddy fought for this country, and I'm not. And that's their business is war, and their business is very good. They will quickly stand up and trash a guy like Favor. He testified before our committee, and I was taken by what he said. I know him pretty well now, but we we had the committee, which was crazy. Me and Luna and a bunch of others got together and said, "Man, we got to do this committee. We need to do this." And so I went to the chairman, and he said, "Sure." And then they sort of blew it off, and then I go see the staff of these committees, and that's the real problem in Washington. Reagan said it best: don't term limit politicians, term limit staff. I go in there and I'm told, "Yeah, well, I think we want to just talk about this Chinese hot air balloon is what we want to really talk about." I said, "No, hell no, that's not. Excuse my language. Heck no. We want to talk about dadgum UFOs, what people are calling us about constantly." I mean, it was just getting so much airplay. And then I was told by some old timers, which was kind of cool. They said that, Tim, I've been here, some of them been here 10, 15 years, and said that was the most attended committee that they could remember. They had to open up another room so people could be there. I walked out. I was on Fox that morning, and I was going out. I left my office at 4:30 in the morning, and I was outside. And I remember it was hot because it was summertime, and there was people already outside lining up that had come from all over the country on their own dime. I mean, these weren't like wealthy people. I mean, one guy said, "This is our vacation this year. We're coming to this dadgum committee meeting." And Joe, they were lined up around the hall, around everywhere. And that's where I met Sean Ryan and a bunch of people. And it was amazing to me. And that's when Congress started paying attention to it, because they realized the voters are paying attention to it.
Yeah, I mean, that might be the only way to put pressure on them. The thing about the alternative energy sources, one of the things that I was thinking is that if you were involved in whatever, petroleum, like whatever your business is, and there's something that's coming along.
Put them out of business.
Yeah.
Them and the Pentagon. That was my point on the Pentagon.
Yeah.
It would put them out of business, put the oil companies out of business, because this thing wasn't even showing a dadgum heat signature.
Right.
If a blackbird flies across my farm, it's going to put out a dadgum heat signature.
Right.
And through the all the technology we had, as they called them, the Tic Tac. Mm-hmm. Tic Tacs, yeah, they look like the little mint, and that's what they were.
That's what Commander David Fravor saw. Yeah, and not only saw, but there's video footage of it, there's radar footage of it. It's exhibiting travel that's just beyond comprehension for modern technology, for current state technology.
100%.
But if these people were working on some sort of new energy source or some sort of new propulsion system, and you've got to imagine there's a very small amount of people that are on the cutting edge of whatever this stuff is. If this is like groundbreaking technology that's not known by mainstream physicists or whoever's working on it, and you only have a small group of people, if you whack one of them, you put a big stop to any progress, especially if you get the main people, the lead scientist, and that guy winds up getting assassinated or winds up in
disappears.
Disappears. The one lady was the weird one. So she's walking with her.
She hiking or something?
Yes.
Yeah.
Walking with her friend. Her friend turns around and talks to her, and then walks a little further, turns around to say something again, and she's gone. Just gone. and they bring in dogs. They have cadaver dogs. They can't find her. There's no trace. No one's seen her since. And this lady was apparently, wasn't she involved in some sort of alternative technology, alternative?
Yeah, I think she's on a patent.
Metallurgy was her deal. So you think of these, whatever, these craft or whatever have to be something. And I said this earlier on one time, and it made a lot of sense. I was surprised that something I said did, but it sort of stuck. It's like, well, why don't they just bring it all out now if they've got it? I don't think we've got the technology to figure out what the heck it is. Like, I ride motorcycles. I got an old 47 Indian Chief. If I were to take that thing back to the when they came over in the Mayflower, they would see it and think, that's kind of unusual. They might worship his as a god. I know I sometimes do when I go out to the garage, but they're not gonna be able to adjust the valves. They're not gonna know what the heck a spark plug is. They probably wouldn't be able to figure out how to make a fuel with a high enough octane for the thing to kick over. Right. And I think that, and they might polish it. They might get it started. And I think that's sort of where we're at with this stuff, Joe. I think it's I think a lot of them have something and they just don't know what the heck to do with it.
Well, that's Bob Lazar's take on it, and that was his take on it when he was working there in 1989. He said they understood how to turn it on. They didn't exactly understand how it worked or what it did, and they wanted him to try to figure it out.
Those guys that came to my house, they talked about that and how something could travel at these light years, and one of them was an astrophysicist, and I don't really understand astrophysics, but it took me 6 years to get out of UT, and I didn't drink or smoke pot, so I'm just going to elaborate a little bit if that's all right with you, brother. Have a degree in shop. Technological and adult education. I can fix your lawnmower. I can burn your house down if you need it wired, but I'll always have a job. But so you got something vibrating over here, and then instantly it's over here. Right. And that's sort of the way they explained it, put it on my level to understand it. And I mean, to me, it proves that there's a God. I mean, because it's an instantaneous travel that we don't quite comprehend. Now, is there friction involved? And that's where the when they see these blobs out there that are floating around, that are lit up. I've had several people tell me about that. How these there was one incident where they surrounded a group of our aircraft, and it was and a lot of them deal with nuclear weapons. It seems that when we're around some nukes, we've had. I always remember I went in and it's been a long time since you had a man bun, so I'm gonna knock on this. I had this bureaucrat with a dadgum man bun telling me. I asked him about a certain incident, and he said, "We don't have data points on that, Congressman." And I said, "Well, what about this deal?" And he said, "I don't know what you're talking about." I said, "Well, Google it. Everybody in the world knows about. We had a nuclear power plant that had these things fly over, and the dadgum thing shut down. I mean, it's been documented. Yeah. It has been documented unequivocally, and and that's that. And then you have members of Congress go, "Well, they said it didn't exist, so we're out. I'm good." And I'm like, no. I'm sitting here reading these officers that are obviously very. I read people. God gives us all a gift. My gift is reading somebody. And I was reading these military officers, and they had the full. They had all of it. They'd been serving for a while, and some of them had done some things. And I could just sit there reading them. They're thinking, this little twerp right here beside me, I'd choke him out if I could. I mean, they were just like.
They were angry at you.
No, not at me, at him.
At
him, because they wanted to tell something, and this was a Biden appointee, and, it just. And that's a lot of the times. I was in one situation, I'll just call it, where they sent somebody in basically just to disrupt, to throw at a witness, and that witness he was like a pro ball player hitting t-ball, man. He was just knocking them out of the dadgum park every quay. He said, "What about?" And he gave a date, and he said, "Oh, you're talking about this incident. Well, let me tell you what happened there." And he would go through everything, and it was beautiful. It was beautiful. And then he got disgusted and ended up leaving the meeting. And and that's they send people in to disrupt. They're just not going to turn. And I don't know if the fact that and the corruption in Washington D.C. is not like it used to be. It's not like, oh, I got a picture of you sleeping with some hooker over in Istanbul. Oh, make copies. I want to take it to my buddies. I mean, that's about what you'd get now. But the way it is now is, I think, is that some members have a family member or a wife and or girlfriend that could work for one of these groups. And they're told, hey, you want to keep your dadgum job or you want these pictures to come out or whatever. We need a little help here. And then they go disrupt and come into the committee meetings and ask ridiculous questions to try to get a partisan fight going. And maybe some of them do it unbeknownst to them or what they're being told to do, but they do it because they're just lapdogs.
So there's a strategy where they have a bunch of people that they sort of compromise as disruptors. And they are
compromised. Exactly. That's the word. I was on and I'm going to say another one. I was on the Benny show early when he was early on, and I was talking
Benny
to
Johnson?
Yeah. And so he's been very kind to me. And so he asked me about how do they do it, and I said, well, they used to do this thing called the honey pot. You know, you'd go to I never go on trips. The only trip I've ever been on a Codell was to the border down here. Down in Texas, and I went down for one day, flew down here, saw the border, saw all the people coming over the border, got in an airplane, flew home. It was about an 18-hour trip. It wasn't any luxury. I stayed in a room that my buddies at the frat house would have probably asked for our money back in. It was pretty rough, you know. Got some good barbecue, though. But anyway, so these guys go on these trips, and say you're sitting down at the bar. I mean, you're a good-looking guy. Some girl comes up to you or some guy, whatever your interest, whatever your proclivities are, and laughing at your jokes. And, you know, next thing you know, you're up in the bedroom naked with them. And then you think, man, I pulled this off. I was with this smoke show, and my wife and kids don't know about it. And I'm just going to, you know, I'm just between me and the Lord. And then, you know, you're getting ready to make a key vote. And a staffer comes up or a lobbyist or something, you're in the hall and says, hey, Congressman. I said, yeah, man, how's it going? He said, he got this big boat. Yeah, but I'm not for y'all on this one. Okay, we understand. He said, hey, were you in a motel room in Istanbul with a pretty redhead one time? And he goes, oh. And they say, man, I don't want that out. It'll wreck my mind. We don't want it out. We just need your help. And that's how they sink their claws into you. They used to. And they might do that now. But I was on the Benny show, and I was talking about that. Oh, man, I caught it from, it was leadership and members. Man, everybody thinks we're sleeping around. I said, no, I didn't say everybody. I just said some of y'all are. I said, you know, don't. And every day there's a new one getting in trouble, so it's not any big secret. 435 of us. So
you get 435 people. You're gonna have a few freaks in there.
Oh.
435 group of any human beings.
Yeah,
especially, you know, if you can compromise a man with beautiful women, it's not that hard to do.
Or if they're gay and they don't want it out in their public or whatever. So I said this to Benny, and I caught it. And then about a week later, and I said it's probably the Chinese, the Russians, or something. They busted a Chinese prostitution ring. And what did they list as their clientele? Lobbyists, government employees, and politicians.
Of course.
And then what happened the next week? That story went away. And Benny does this thing. He showed me walking out, and I throw a match, and the whatever behind me just bursts into flames, and I'm walking out. You know, it's really cool. And he also did a song of me singing "Dadgum," which is my cuss. I don't cuss. I say "Dadgum," and he did that. But anyway, that was my point: is that they use this stuff, and they know what we want. These guys, these countries, they know they own the internet, so they know which porn you look at. You're in the privacy of your home that you think you got this private name on your freaking computer, and they know, and so that's what they're going to hit you with. So anyway, that's a long story, but I think mostly it's just jobs now.
Mostly jobs and influence and figuring out. Well, you think about
you get a dirt bag, you're going to get him to sleep with some hooker. That's going to happen. Eventually too. But I don't know if it's that prevalent. And I had a lobbyist tell me one time. He was his name was Tom Hensley. He was the Golden Goose. He was a liquor lobbyist in Nashville, Tennessee, and he was a caricature of what a lobbyist is. He had 3-piece suit, big old cowboy boots, smoking a cigar, and we were at the Crown Plaza. He liked me because I never would vote for his liquor bills, but I never would vote for a tax on them either. So we were there, and the guy from the governor's office came and just chewed both of us out. Just treated me. I'm a legislator, and he was treating me like a dog. And Goose was sitting back here, and he had that fancy Jack Daniels Black Label or whatever it is, that the fancy version of it is, because he represented Jack Daniels, made in Tennessee. And he pulls that big $5 cigar out of his mouth, and he goes, Burchett? He goes, governors come and go, but the old goose will be sitting right here. And I said, well, what are you going to do, Goose? He's going to shut you down, man. He's going to tell these people stuff. And he goes, Burchett, I just need one chairman. I don't need the whole, in one body of the House, in the House or the Senate. I just need one chairman that'll listen to me. And he wasn't saying, he never did anything crooked in front of me, and he never offered me any bribes or anything.
Right.
But that was a good lesson to learn as a young man when I was in the state legislature.
Well, if you just think about how much money Congress people wind up leaving office with, just that alone is incentive to play ball.
Wait a minute, you don't think we're making 16,000% on our own knowledge? My daughter called me a while back and said, Dad, and she's super smart. She's do anything. I'm a veterinarian doctor, I'm a brain surgeon. She's crazy smart. I married my wife and adopted her. My wife was a widow, so genetically she's not mine. But when she gets into trouble, my wife says, that's all you, Tim Burchett. But she's an exceptional little girl. And she said, Dad, I think I'd just like to cut hair. And I was like, right on, girl. You go and do it. And that's what she does. I mean, she's going to school to do that. So I cashed out my $11,000 portfolio, which was a mutual fund, because I think, and I don't own any individual stocks, but I think that members of Congress ought to do that. That was my bill. You don't own more people have played professional baseball than have ever been in Congress. It's a very tight. And I tell people, if you don't get off that dadgum plane and look at that Capitol and get chill bumps, you need to get your butt back on that plane and go home, because we don't need you there. And everybody knocks on Pelosi, and I know that. But out of the top 10, you know where she is in the amount of trades?
Where is she at?
Number 11.
Really?
She's not even in the top 10, dude.
Well, she should get a better PR person.
I know.
It's crazy because everybody uses her as an example.
I know, but she don't care. I mean, if you were making 16,000%, would you care?
Oh, I would be a little concerned that someone would come for me.
She's all right.
Well, it's just bizarre that it's legal. That's the most bizarre.
Oh, it's not right. I mean,
right.
It's not right, but it's legal. And I just said, look, you cash out everything, you put it in a mutual fund. And I know they got this bill, and everybody's all fired up for it. And I'm not. I don't know what I'm going to do about it.
Which bill?
They got a new bill. They don't like my bill, mine and Luna's bill, that says that you can't own individual stocks, just own a mutual fund. They're going to let you keep your portfolio. So, some of these cats got a $20 million dadgum portfolio.
And they make $170,000 a year, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Imagine the average person out there making $170,000, and all of a sudden they make $100 million in the stock market.
We're involved. Not all of them are crooked. Some of them are geniuses. I've been in Congress with some real geniuses. But if you see, I'll give you a case in point. All right, and I've said this many times, and nobody's come after me and said, they told me to quit saying it, but I don't care. I got a dadgum First Amendment. I don't care. They come to East Tennessee and try to beat me. But they I forgot what I was saying now, man. I've lost my mind. I guess that's the part you're going to have to cut out.
Oh, no, we're talking about insider trading. We're talking about the amount of money that people generate. That's where we're at. We're talking about bills.
Someone's a genius, really good at it.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I forgot it. I've got so many one-liners in my head, Joe. I should have written all these down. But anyway, they all, not all of them are crooked. Some of them are really that good.
I'm sure.
But I know what it was. It was when Russia invaded Ukraine. I haven't voted for a dime for that. It's not our dadgum war. I keep my dollars here. We need to defend our own dadgum borders. Well, Joe Biden, for better or for worse, gave Ukraine basically our missile defense system. So immediately we had to replenish our missile defense system. Now, who do you think owns stock in those missile defense systems? Members of Congress.
Yeah.
Members of Congress. And apparently some of them had bought it at fairly close to those time periods. And so, I don't know. Are they doing something crooked? You can't prove it.
Well, if it's not crooked, they know things that would help them.
And
they know things are
remove
coming.
all reproach.
Yeah.
And if you've got a $20 million portfolio or whatever, some probably have more than that, good and dadgum well, you're going to vote. It's in the back of your mind, you're going to vote to make my investment worth a little more.
Yeah. So the possibility of financial windfall would probably make people play ball, which makes
100%.
sense. Which
Yeah,
makes sense.
Sure,
I mean,
it's
if
human
you think-
nature. You got guys up there that they got expenses at home, got a couple kids in school, got payments on a house, and $170,000 doesn't go as far as it used to, I guess.
And just human nature. You want more. People want more. They want, whatever it is.
And a lot of times it's not them investing, it's their wife or their spouse. And we've seen cases of that where, a 16-year-old kid is doing pretty well.
Right. And it's a child of someone who has some inside information. There's something that just came out yesterday about Rogan. This guy, Kevin Bass, on Twitter, posted this big, this examination of his stock trades and how much money he's made and how he's made it and what he's done. It's just all over Congress. You have inside information. That's what it is.
That's disappointing. I know, Ro. But,
I don't know if it's true.
I don't either. Yeah,
you could pull it up if you want, Jamie. It's Kevin Bass, B-A-S-S. It's Bass or Bass. I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, but he made this very detailed post about it. But that's just one example of one person who's profited. I'm sure it's probably minor in comparison to the other 11 that are ahead of Nancy Pelosi.
I sleep on my couch in my office, and I shower in the gym. I don't have a place. I can't afford it. It's too expensive up there. When I got elected with a guy one time, and he said, "Hey, Burchett, I just paid $1.2 million for this place. What do you think?" And I know he was just bragging to me, because no way I could do something like that. And he said, and I said, well, probably in a couple of years they're going to say, I can't believe you only paid $1.2 million for it, because the price of that real estate up there is just crazy. It is crazy. And it's a rich man's game. It is really a rich man's game.
And the problem with being around rich men is even if you're rich, you don't feel like you're rich if you're in comparison to them. And so if you're worth a couple million and this guy over here is worth 50, you're like, damn, I got to up my game. And you're in this sort of culture, culture of a bunch of people that are investing a bunch of money and making a bunch of returns.
And I'll tell you, it was a public meeting. I remember it was in transportation. It dealt with some technology in an airport, and it was pretty cool. And I just asked the question. I said, is your stock publicly traded? I was watching people see what they did, and they all looked up, and I thought, note to self, call my broker when I walk out of here,
It's just very odd that has been legal for so long. That's what's very odd.
It's disgusting. And here's what we're going to do. We'll pass some bill, and the Senate will pass another bill, or Thune just won't take it up, which is we're seeing a lot of now. Just won't take anything up, and it'll die, and we'll all go back to our people and say, "Oh, look, I tried to do this. I voted for this bill, but I didn't get a dadgum break,
Yeah.
And look how tough we are, and they'll all be up at Kennebunkport sipping expensive wine and toasting each other on their great financial choices."
That's where Bush is from, right?
I don't know.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think they're from Kennebunkport, Maine.
Yeah, I just threw that one out. It's the only place I could think of. Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, for somebody like me would be pretty cool.
So one of the things about this disclosure thing, the documentary Age of Disclosure, and you're in that. It's really great. If you haven't seen it, folks, and you're interested in the UFO phenomenon, one of the fascinating aspects about Age of Disclosure is you got all these insider people that are all talking about all these different experiences that people have had and all this stuff that people know. And one subject came up that made a lot of sense, and it was that if there have been back engineering programs and they've had access to all this technology and they've had crashed vehicles and biological entities and there have been all these programs studying this for so long, they had to have funding. So if they had funding, that means they had to lie to Congress. So if they had to lie to Congress, there's misappropriation of funds. So you're talking about massive felonies. So if they don't have some sort of amnesty, and this is one of the things that's pushed throughout this entire documentary, is that we need some kind of mass amnesty. I'm a very skeptical person. I see something like that, I'm like, okay, I see what you're doing. You are talking about UFOs so you can get some sort of amnesty for misappropriation of funds, and that might just be straight up fraud. There might be fraud and theft, and you might have moved money into offshore accounts, and might be a bunch of shady shit, and you could say, oh, but we'll tell you some very obscure information about UAPs. I don't like that term because it was always UFOs.
UFOs, that's a misdirection.
Yeah.
I hate that term.
Why do we need a new name? We've
don't.
already had that name forever. Let's
wanna
call it what it
change
is.
it. Yeah.
UFOs is fun. UAPs feels sanitized. But if they can give you some fucking, semi-shady information, now you've got amnesty.
Yeah.
Now you've got amnesty. And you've got amnesty for decades of misappropriation of funds. So maybe some of it is real. Maybe a lot of it is real. Maybe a lot of it is really back engineering programs. Maybe they really have been doing these things, and maybe they can give us slowly trickle down some insight as to what's going on. It'll probably take forever if you ever get anything out of it. But in the meantime, all these people that have made who knows how much money in shady ways with all this misappropriation of funds, and now they're not in trouble anymore.
Yeah. Representative Eric Burleson has a bill to do just that, and it's whistleblower protection is the way you need to go about that. And he can't. He's tried to get it attached to bills, and they just won't allow it. They won't allow it, or they put it on and kill it in the Senate. It's the same old game, Joe, back and forth.
So then the other problem that's brought up in Age of Disclosure is, say if you do have a retrieved craft from wherever, another planet, another dimension, whatever it is, from the ocean, whatever it is, and you need to study this thing, where are you bringing it to? Most likely you're going to bring it to a weapons manufacturing company.
100%.
And so if you do that, well, what about the other companies? They don't have access to that? Well, then they can sue. Or they can, why didn't I get access to that sort of technology? Why does this person? You've damaged my business, or, what have you. And also people have probably lied under oath about whether or not those things exist, or where they got certain technologies. I mean, there's a bunch of different reasons why you could see logical reasons why you could see why they would try to put the brakes on disclosure and try to put some blockades up and try to obfuscate and make things much more difficult to get through.
I agree, 100%, and that's why I think these folks disappearing and dying unexpectedly are delivering some of those messages.
Yeah,
and members of Congress will, several of the people that have been involved that are really heavily into it now, they were real skeptics. We kind of brought them in. I needed some skeptics. It couldn't just all be a bunch of folks that thought like I did, and they're now not skeptics.
Can you give me some examples of like how that happened?
Yeah, well, we had a committee meeting, and my buddy Eric Burleson, for instance, he was a skeptic, and I mean, I'm a skeptic of a lot of it myself, but I just have been studying for so dadgum long, and he was in the committee, and he's asking very poignant, sharp questions, which is what you're supposed to do in a hearing, and he's one of the biggest advocates now for total release of everything. He's always at the forefront of writing legislation. When we're doing something, we're always me, him, and Luna. Jared Moskowitz on the Democrat side is involved in it a lot. And and other members will come in and say, "Hey, I want to be read into this committee," which means they can come on when we do the UFO stuff. But nothing really had the impact as that first committee meeting. And I told people at the end of it, I was recognized at the end. I said, the one thing about, and Nancy Mace, of course, she's involved with it as well. And one thing at the end, I said, fine, I just want y'all to know that people do believe you. This is not some crazy far out thing, and you all have a right to be skeptical and ask questions of your government and get these answers, because we're not going to give it to you without y'all being there and raising these questions.
Well, there's too many stories from too many credible people. Too many people like Ryan Graves. Too many people like Commander David Fravor. There's too many people that You just go, I don't know why this person would lie about this one thing.
Can I tell you one that I got on? I was in the state legislature with a guy, and he was watching Unknown Aliens or something, and they film you one time, and then they use you for like 3 years.
Oh, Ancient Aliens?
Ancient Aliens,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That show's great.
I love that show. I love those guys. They're all
So
great.
fun.
I love it.
Shout out to Giorgio.
Yeah.
Giorgio Tsoukalos and his crazy hair.
I love that guy. I think he's Greek. I need to get him to Knoxville for the Greek festival. But anyway, he'd be a rock star there. But so again, I'm losing my train of thought here, Joe. I don't even smoke weed, and I'm losing my train of thought. What were we talking about here? I hope you edit some of this because I look
We're not
like an
editing
idiot.
shit.
I know.
We're talking about disclosure.
Oh, yeah,
We're
disclosure.
talking
Okay.
about things
Okay.
that people see.
Yeah, I was telling you about
credible people.
So I pick up the phone, and a buddy of mine says, Timbo, and I recognize the voice. And I said, hey, brother, what are you up to? We were in the state house together. He said, I just saw you on Ancient Aliens. And I said, okay. And I thought, here it comes, hey, you been probed lately? You
Right.
get that stuff from
Yeah.
some of the guys and gals in Congress. And he said, can I tell you a story? And I said, sure, buddy. And his voice kind of got quiet. And I remember he hollered at his wife. He said, hey, said her name. And he said, what year was that? It was when he was in the Navy. And she said it was, and she gave the date. It was, I think, in the 50s. And he was out on a boat, and I don't know, a battleship from an aircraft carrier. But anyway, he was out on a boat, and they were arming a sub with nukes. It was in the early part of that where the subs could launch nuclear weapons. And they were all out on the deck. And all of a sudden, there was just a cloud over him. He said he looked up, and he saw this humongous saucer in the air. And he said, Timbo, he said, if that thing wasn't 2 blocks long, I'll kiss your butt. And I said, and he described it to me. He said he gave the color, and it was the classic saucer. He said there was lights coming out of portals around it, and he said it made no noise whatsoever, and it just sat there and hovered, and they just looked up at it, and then it just went. It just went straight up, no noise, no nothing, no anything, and they're all just like, what the heck was that? And so when they get back to port, the guys in the suits come on, the so-called men in black. they're just spooks, CIA or something, and told them, they said, this is national security. If you talk about this, you'll be in Leavenworth the rest of your dadgum lives busting rocks. And back then, the cell phone wasn't invented. Al Gore hadn't invented the internet yet.
What year was this?
It would have been in the 50s, late 50s, I believe, or early 60s. So, but he gave me some descriptions. And after this came out, my phone, Joe, every day when this started breaking, somebody would call me and send me pictures of something, that's like a reflection or something, and, come out to my house. All right, I'm afraid I was going to end up in a freezer in North Carolina or something, be somebody's dinner. And I was like, I don't want to go out there and look at it. Just send me a picture of it. And every day, but then I got a call from a guy who was Air Force, and I Googled him. He's legit. And he told me about a sighting he had. He was out, they were out fishing in Florida, and it was near where one of the military bases was. And this thing, and he described exactly what my buddy had seen. And he saw this in the, I think the early 80s or late 70s. And he described this craft that was just hovering, and it was just going along. And it was just going on a pretty good click. And he said these jets were trying to keep up with it. He could tell by because he's an Air Force guy. And he was an officer. And it was legitimate. And I've since read the story that he told. But it was strangely identical in the color, the texture.
What color was it?
It was an off gray, I believe. But it didn't really matter. But it was just the same one that they said. Could have been chartreuse for all I know. But but the size and the circumference and the dome on top and the portholes and just everything was just very, very similar to what this guy had told me about just a few weeks prior. And when you see identical things of people that have no contact with each other, to me that says something. And then with these pilots, they're risking their careers to come forward. And those engineers in Age of Discovery, that come forward. I mean, their reputations and everything are on the line.
Right. These aren't rich people.
No.
They can't just retire.
No, and they're good folks. I've
Yeah.
hung out with them when they had the world premiere, which was something else. Me standing on the red carpet, a little out of place in that at a film festival.
Yeah. No, I'm sure. I avoid those things. They're weird. But this subject, when you talk about them appearing over bases, appearing over aircraft carriers, appearing over submarines that have nuclear capability, it kind of makes sense that if you were from another planet or you're from another dimension or wherever it is, and you're monitoring what seems to be the most intelligent species and the most capable species on the planet,
Right.
that when they would get access to something like that, like all the UFO sightings ramped up considerably after World War II. After we dropped the bombs.
We dropped the bomb.
Yeah, there was a considerable amount of activity. You know, that's when Kenneth Arnold first saw those things and talked about them as flying saucers.
Called them flying saucers.
That was
the
in
first time.
Washington State? Is that
Yeah,
what that was?
yeah. They looked like stones skipping across. They looked like little saucers.
Yeah, so that's where the term first got introduced into the modern world. And then you see so many of them, and then you hear these stories about them flying over nuclear bases and hovering over and shutting down the equipment. And just the fact that they would hover over that submarine and then take off, just to let you know, like
This
probably
is what we can do.
it's probably a smart move if you don't want to completely intervene and like kidnap people and shut down the government and land on the White House lawn and freak everybody out. What better way than to take something that's completely isolated, like a submarine in the ocean, where you know everybody's going to lock everything down top secret, and just show yourself and just like, hey, bitch, like we're here. We're here and we are watching everything. So don't do anything fucking stupid.
You know, when you talked about that issue or episode, I remember when they I've never been invited back, of course, but the Intelligence Committee, when they did the UFO thing, and they had all these seats, and it was open to the everybody, Congress and the press and everybody, and they had all these seats behind this white guy and this black guy who were appointed to oversee the UAP issue, which, and I remembered, I thought, I'm going to get there early, get the seat down front. And I sat right behind those guys, and nobody else showed up. I was the only member of Congress outside of the members on the committee. And Joe, those guys couldn't spell UFO. I mean, they were intelligent. They were, I'm sure they're patriots. They had no clue about anything. So there's questions asked about certain incidents, and we don't know anything about that. You know, and I thought to myself, that's when the compartmentalization came to in my mind, how they compartmentalize that stuff. Because to them, they could take a lie detector test and say, I don't know anything about it, because they are kept away from it. It's like they're looking down the barrel of a .22 rifle, man. It's just a little bitty area, and they don't get outside that area. And they don't ask questions, and they don't unless they're told.
And if you want to keep your career, that's how you have to operate.
And your pension and everything else. Absolutely.
It makes sense. That aspect of it makes sense. What doesn't totally make sense is why now disclosure, other than, I mean, this is being cynical. The Iran war is not going very well. American public's very upset. A lot of people don't think we should have ever been involved in that in the first place, and we need some good news.
I think we
need something to distract us. We need something to take our focus off of.
If I was going to do it, now would be the time I'd do it. But I don't think Trump really even cares. I think he just wants to get it out there.
Well, I think he does too. You know, he's talked about it, and he's also.
I don't think he cares about trying to get everybody off target. You know, by disclosing UFOs. I think he cares about all of it, but I don't think he cares that if you're talking about it or not. I just think he genuinely sees that America needs to know this stuff.
Well, he also realizes America wants to know it, and he's an outsider. I mean, even though he's the president, he is
completely
in a lot
outside.
of ways he's an outsider. And I mean, this is his last term, right? And so it's like if someone's gonna do it, do it. You want to leave a legacy? Be the guy who releases all these files.
They
and
tried
lets
to kill him
know.
3 times.
Yeah.
So it's not, and that ain't no.
Did you see that judge that apologized to the guy that Did you see the story?
No.
Okay. The guy who was at the White House Correspondents' Dinner that shot one of the Secret Service agents and the guy got arrested.
Yeah.
The judge who's dealing with the case apologized to him for his treatment in jail. Do you have that, Jamie? See if you can find that.
He should have gotten some quality stick time.
This is another guy. This judge also released another man who was arrested for threatening to kill Trump.
Oh. Trump derangement syndrome
Well,
for real, dude. It's ridiculous.
But the way this guy addressed this man, it's almost as if he was condoning it. Look what it says. The indictment comes a day after the judge overseeing the case against Allen expressed grave concerns about how he's being treated in jail and apologized to him in court. You're talking about a guy who showed up with a rifle or a shotgun. Shot a Secret Service agent, obviously in the vest. The guy's okay. But whatever you've been through, I apologize for the prior week. Magistrate Judge Zia Faroukwi, I don't know if I'm saying that right, said during a hearing in Washington, D.C. on Monday. According to the court documents filed over the weekend, Allen had been in solitary confinement, oh, poor baby, at the D.C. jail after being placed on suicide watch after his arrest on April 25th. His lawyers said that he was housed in a permanently illuminated safe cell with no access to personal items or jail visits, despite repeated assessments showing he did not exhibit any suicide factors. In an order issued on Sunday, Faroukwi wrote that he had grave concerns about the conditions Allen was being kept in, which he said were seemingly unprompted by the facts of the case. It could drive a person crazy to be in that situation, Faroukwi said during Monday's hearing. That is really crazy. That is really a crazy thing to apologize for someone who was trying to at least assume. You're assuming he was trying to kill the president.
And the guy's been programmed to do this. He immediately turns, from one way to the other, overnight almost. And we're seeing this more and more. I think.
What do you mean the guy's been programmed?
I think these people are.
You mean like MKUltra type programming?
100%.
Really?
I think so, but it's a different. MK. You're the expert on it.
I'm not really.
Well,
don't say that.
No, I don't want to get you bumped off
Jamie
there.
knows more than I do about it.
Let somebody else go start your car when you walk out there and wait 30 minutes.
Don't make me an expert.
But yeah,
I know nothing.
But the CIA, they were grabbing these people up and giving them, I guess, acid or LSD, whatever, and then programming them, and then they said they weren't doing it, and then they got sued, and they said, oh, we lied. We were doing it, but we're not doing it anymore. Now, which time are they not? So here's my thought on this. I think you've got a bunch of people today because of this. It's just open up your head and pour it in, and they can put these things out to people just enough to where they know that there's going to be a reaction. There's some people, you and I are going to read this stuff and go, and there's some people that are just going to stay awake at night and just fume. I know people that read stuff and they'll call me and text me and said, can you believe this? And I'm like, dude, man, I live this stuff. Cool out. We're good. We're okay. And I think that these folks, they know who they are and they can target them. How many of these people are we going to find that have no internet access, have no history of being on the internet?
Right, like Thomas Crooks.
Yeah, that's just
one's
total
nuts.
BS. Total BS. Oh, we let him on the roof, and and then
they couldn't get snipers on that roof because the slope was too steep.
Yeah, we had members of Congress that are older than I think Darrell Issa was there. I know a couple other guys were there too. I mean, he's an older guy. He's older than me. I think he was walking around up on it. And that's bogus. That's totally bogus. They put Trump in a bad position, and. That's the thing. You'll never know.
There's another thing we should talk about.
Dead men tell no tales.
There's another thing we should talk about. There's a lot of people running around out there saying that first Trump assassination was a setup and that it was a hoax and that Trump did it to try to get people to be more sympathetic to him. Anybody who says that doesn't know anything about guns.
No.
Because the shot was from, how far was it? Was it 140 yards? Is that what it was, Jamie? There is not a person on earth that could nick your ear at 140 yards reliably. Not only that, but miss other shots first, kill someone behind you, shoot another person as well, and just nick his ear. And just by the grace of God, by just sheer luck, he turns his head at the right time and he catches his ear. Okay, 120 to 140 meters or 135 to 150 yards away during the rally. He was positioned on top of an AGR International building, which provided a clear line of sight to the stage. Just that alone is a tremendous failure of security. The fact that they didn't search and look at these buildings, that you don't have drones above scanning the area where you have a potential line of sight, a easy shot with someone with a scope.
And my buddy Eli Crane, he's a sniper, and he said, I could have made that shot, because he's a SEAL sniper, and my
100%.
brother-in-law Cliff was a Marine sniper, and he said I could have probably done it with steel sights, Tim. And
well, did the man have steel sights, or did he?
Yeah, he did have steel sights.
He didn't have a scope.
And the thing to me is that he got up there, and people were pointing at him. It was just a complete. Is it a breakdown? You think is it a breakdown? It's a breakdown if Tim Burchett sneaks into the back of a Leonard Skinner concert and gets close to the stage. That's a breakdown. That to me is a complete capitulation. They put Trump out there, and there's people that don't like him. You can say what you want to about programming and things. I just think it's out there. I think it is a reality, and I think people better wake up, because Washington D.C. is not a everybody wants to call it a swamp.
Okay, so it does have a scope. It does have a
scope,
sight
or
on.
is that
Yeah,
a
that's
sight?
a red dot.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if it's magnified. It says optics attached to rail, AEMS optics. So I don't know. I'd have to talk to some of my guys out front about like what kind of a sight that is, what kind of optics that is.
Right.
I don't know if it's magnified or if it's like pistol optics. But either way, even if it's just if he's prone and he's got a rifle and it says, check it out, Jamie. I think that's just the setup, though. I don't think that's actually the. I think AEMS optics is the optics, right? Modified with a collapsible stock.
AEMS red dot sight.
Yeah, so it's a red dot. I don't know if that's
magnified.
I don't think that's magnified. I think that's just like what you get on a pistol. It just makes it a little bit more accurate.
I'd seen pictures of him just walking across an area, and you could tell he was carrying something that was fairly long.
Well, not only that, he was walking around the site with a rangefinder.
Yeah. Oh, and
Are you playing golf?
He'd earlier put a drone up, I think. Yeah.
If you're not playing golf and you have a rangefinder, you're trying to shoot something. That's it.
100%.
There's the only two reasons to use a rangefinder. You're playing golf, you're doing archery, or you're trying to shoot something with a rifle.
No other thing. But these guys just keep doing this, and I think we're going to have a hearing on that, not on that particular case, but just on what the CIA is doing and how they could do that today.
Well, they most certainly can do that today if they could do that in the 1960s.
Yeah.
There's a fantastic book called Chaos by Tom O'Neill. It's all about the Manson family. Have you ever read it?
I've seen it. I haven't read it.
It's phenomenal, and it's mind-blowing. You read it, and it all documents Jolly West and the MKUltra program and what they did with Jack Ruby. And they visited Jack Ruby after he shot Lee Harvey Oswald, and Jack Ruby went insane and had a complete psychotic breakdown and said they're lighting Jews on fire, and he was like going nuts.
Yeah.
And was sane before Ruby visited him. This guy was known to be using LSD on people, unknowing people. They ran Operation Midnight Climax, which is where the CIA actually ran brothels. They had two-way mirrors, and they had these supposed prostitutes give these Johns alcohol that had LSD in it, and then they'd monitor them. They were doing that with people, unsuspecting people, dosing them up, trying to figure out how and what techniques they could use to manipulate people and to get people to do things they wanted them to do. That's what the whole Manson family was all about. And what the Manson family, what those killings did, the Tate LaBianca murders, what they did was they turned people against hippies. Like, people had this idea of hippies being peace and love and like, oh, it's a new world and everyone's just going to do acid and hug each other and drop out of society.
Yeah.
Then it was all of a sudden it became, no, they're psychotic killers and they're demonic and, and this is what we have to think about. We need to ban all these drugs. And that's what they did. And it's kind of fascinating that they were able to do that and do that for so long. And if it wasn't for the Freedom of Information Act request, and if it wasn't for finding those documents that they found that were just in storage,
right,
that detailed all this, we wouldn't have any knowledge of this stuff.
Most of that stuff disappears.
I'm sure there's a bunch of stuff that we have. I think this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's probably a ton of those things that have gone on that they successfully hid. And they got sloppy with this. And Johnny West seems like he was a completely insane person. And, how could you not be if you're like running around dosing people with acid? Running fake whorehouses. I mean, it's nuts. The whole story is nuts. But the idea that they go, hey, we shouldn't do that anymore. No. Even though it was successful, that doesn't track. No. That doesn't track with how anything works. No. That doesn't track with human nature. It doesn't track with how the government works. The idea that they don't have people right now. And also, how many people are voluntarily on psychiatric medication that alters them? And then without any sort of formal program like MKUltra, just using bots, just using AI, just using people's algorithm to turn them, radicalize them in certain ways. Like, of course they're going to do that. Of course they're going to try to figure out what they can do, what they can, how they can shift narratives in one direction or another. I mean, that's what they do.
And Trump's a threat to their machine.
Of course.
I don't ever think we'll ever find the answer to it. I don't think somebody's going to come forward, and maybe in our lifetime they might, but by then everybody will be gone again.
Well, where's the toxicology examination on Thomas Crooks? Let me find out what he was on.
Oh, wait a minute. They cremated him.
Yeah, they cremated him really quickly. Not only that, like, why was his place professionally scrubbed? He didn't even have silverware in his house. He had no computers. He had no social media.
No internet footprint at all. Right. And then they found stuff that led them to believe that maybe he had international accounts, but he didn't have it. Just constant, and it just happens over every course, every time.
Not only that, but they documented metadata that tracks specific phones from the Virginia area, out near where the FBI area is, to his home multiple times. Why? He's a kid. He's just a young weirdo kid, and someone's visiting him. Over and over again?
His parents were allegedly counselors, I think, and that makes the whole thing even that much more mysterious.
It's all weird, and we don't have any answers, and no one's asking questions. It's like, bye-bye, went away.
You ask the questions, you're still not going to get the answers.
Right. I mean, that will be one of those things that 30, 40 years from now, people are going to be reading books about it and go, what the hell was going on?
It's like the Kennedy assassination. In the Kennedy assassination, we had a committee meeting on that, and I asked a question from this doctor who was in the emergency room. They brought Kennedy in, and he brought a poster in to show that clearly that the bullets had come from two different directions, and so it had to be two bullets. It couldn't have been a very quick ricochet, obviously, and the whole thing. And no press, nobody covered it, nothing. To me, that was blockbuster news. I thought that would have been, but again, the big boys didn't see fit to put that out, and there we are.
Well, just the magic bullet theory alone, like, shut up. That bullet's ridiculous.
Well, that gun is called a Mannlicher carbine. I got one, actually. I think it's 7.62 Italian. It's called the only gun that never won a war. You could have gone to a Western Auto and bought an M1 with scopes on it and made a much better shot than that thing. I mean, the whole thing just stinks. And the gun they show holding up and the gun that they had later, the whole thing is just screwy. And because we didn't ask questions back then.
Yeah, well, no one had information. So what questions could you even ask? And there's a great book on it called Best Evidence by David Lifton. And he was an accountant that was hired to go over the Warren Commission report. And he started finding all these inconsistencies and contradictions in the Warren Commission report. And so then he wrote this book on all the different things that are wrong with the Kennedy assassination and all the different things that we've been told that couldn't possibly be true. And it's very disturbing, including how many people that were witnesses that died. Witnesses at the scene in Dallas that died from weird circumstances, and the odds of those people dying, car accidents, suicide, murder, robbery, it's just too strange.
And people they can't find anymore that were in those pictures, on Daly Square.
They cleaned up a lot of the loose ends.
Quick.
Yeah.
But back then, again, you couldn't ask the questions. You didn't have the internet. And now it's – but nobody's even talking about it. You can't get anybody to bring up anything on Trump getting shot, other than they put out it's a fake. It's
The
his
idea that it's
ear
fake.
healed itself and all this stuff.
Listen, his ear was clearly bleeding. He got shot in the ear. You can see the blood come out right away. It's dripping down the side of his face. And the idea that that's a setup, you cannot be that accurate. You definitely can't be that accurate with a red dot at 140 yards. You can hit him. You could definitely hit him center mass, no problem. Maybe even you hit him in the head if you're really good and you're prone. But nicking his ear like that on purpose and to be there and say, hey, I just want you to nick my ear, just a little piece. Like there's no
off the top.
There's not a chance
No way.
that that's a fake. And the guy behind him's dead. So what are you saying? You think that's fake? Like that's a setup?
Yeah, the fireman lost his life.
Yeah, that's crazy. The whole thing's crazy. But it's just this thing where people hate him so much, and the narrative in the media, this Trump derangement narrative that you see in the media is so strong, and people are so programmed by it. And for the average person that has a very involved job, you're working all day, and then you have a family, and you have a life, and you don't have time to really go into depth about what's real and what's not real. And you got that Russia collusion stuff shoved down your throat by mainstream media for years, and you believe all of it.
100%.
And so you really believed that he's a terrible person, Russian agent, all these different. So you want someone to kill him.
Yeah, there's a group of folks, young folks, that are starting to ask some questions.
Yes.
My wife's son Tyler, he lives on the farm there with us, and he's been asking me inquisitive questions because he doesn't buy it. And a lot of those kids in that generation, I don't know if it's the Charlie Kirk effect. I don't know what that is.
That has a definitely effect on it because a lot of people don't buy that story either.
No.
But it's also the internet. The internet there's enough independent reporters out there that are untied, independent journalists that are untied to any organization that has a narrative they're supposed to push, and they're uncovering real information that's screwy.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense.
Well, and also when they do, though, they get trounced upon by the so-called mainstream media.
Of course.
But their numbers, I mean, my gosh, I read somewhere the amount of media or the amount of information people get from the mainstream media is diminishing.
Well, COVID sunk them. The way they handled COVID and the way they carried water for the pharmaceutical drug industry.
Oh, shit.
And Fauci.
Fauci, and now he's going to walk.
Is he going to walk? Because there's some talk about him possibly being set up for perjury, but there's only a week to go.
Yeah, there's a week to go. I just don't. He'll get a stern letter from somebody in Washington.
Oh.
That drives me crazy, man. I saw, the big boys, you go down to the big hardware chain, and they were allowing people to go in, but they closed down the little local ones, and they closed the churches and the synagogues and everybody down.
Yep.
And then we just all got in line. They just rang the bell, and we're like Pavlov's dog, and we just all got in line. I remember at my hospital in Knoxville, one of them, I came out there and, to get tested. I got tested. I can't tell you how many times I got tested, and I never tested positive. I never took the vaccine or any of that. But I can remember coming out there, and they had these morgues they were setting up just in anticipation of what. And I just thought, man, if this doesn't work out, this is the ultimate psyop because people are going to get rich off this crazy thing. And they did.
Greatest transfer of wealth
unbelievably.
Ever. Yeah.
Unbelievably,
Yeah.
And Congress just did it. We just did it and didn't ask any questions.
Well, it seems like there's a real pandemic right now on this cruise ship. You know about that hantavirus?
Yeah.
That seems really crazy.
And ticks. Watch that thing.
The tick thing is nuts.
Yeah.
Especially
because of meat, because of Gates.
Well, there's
Bill
boxes
Gates, not
people
Matt.
are finding. I don't know if this is true because I've seen many reports on it, but I'm just going to say what I saw, that farmers and ranchers are finding boxes of ticks on their property. Now, I don't know if that's fake.
I
don't know
either.
if someone's setting that up to pretend they found these boxes of ticks, but there's videos of these people finding boxes of ticks.
Now, what they'll say is they'll probably say they're sterile ticks and that we're planting them out there so we can diminish the population is what they'll say. But anytime they try to mess with the balance of nature, it never goes right.
Is that what they're saying? Just
get ready.
That's what you
you're
think?
getting it right here.
I don't believe you have a right to go to someone's property and drop off sterile ticks.
No way in hell.
That's crazy either way. But I have a good friend of mine who got bit by the Lone Star tick and has that alpha gal problem.
Yeah, a guy came out of my house yesterday looking at putting gutters up at our house. And dadgum, he said, and I said, you did what? He goes, yeah, I can't eat any meat produced by a mammal.
Yes.
I was like,
yeah. So my buddy, he had it, and my friend Evan, so he had it for a little while, and then he did a bunch of treatments and got off of it and then started eating steak again. And he was fine for about a year and a half, and then it came back stronger than ever. And he just can't shake it.
It's been around that long.
See, he can only eat eggs. I mean, he's basically eating eggs and vegetables. That's all he's eating. And every time he tries to deviate, he has a horrible reaction. It makes, for people that don't know, it makes your body allergic to red meat.
Right. And who has got genetically made meat now?
Yeah. Bill Gates.
Bill Gates.
Yeah, well, they're doing things with mosquitoes, and they're messing around with nature in a way that no one's given you permission to. The general public does not want you doing this. If they could vote on it, they'd say, no way. You can't.
It's like those beagles that they show that Fauci. I grew up with beagles. Sport number one, sport number two.
They're the sweetest dogs.
They are the best dogs ever. And my Buzz was he's a Cavalier mix, but he was, or we think, I'm not really sure, but he was a rescue dog. And that poor thing had never been on grass. And I see those dogs acting just like poor Buzz. He couldn't climb stairs, and he was mistreated. He can't hear very well. And he's the sweetest dadgum dog, though. And those freaking beagles, that rips my heart out. Because right now, I've talked to scientists in the labs, and I think there's everything we can do now, we can do in the lab without cruelty. Without cruelty, without bringing in beagles. And why beagles? The whole thing just stinks.
It's disgusting.
To me. It's disgusting.
It's very evil. I mean, look, I don't even like when they do it with rats.
Yeah.
But doing it with puppies is insane. And then euthanizing them after you've forced them to be
mistreated.
It's horrible. Yeah, he did some evil stuff. And he lied. Like, clearly lied. Lied to the American people about transmission, lied to the American people about preventing infection.
I can remember when they brought him to Congress, and brought him into a meeting I was in, and I was in the back, and he's a little short guy, and I was like, who the heck is that? And he said, that's Fauci. And they brought him in, and everybody started cheering. I thought I had a bad vibe on him then. And then you talk to gay folks, he was involved in the AIDS.
AZT.
Yeah. And they got a bad feeling towards him.
Sure. I mean, he's the culprit. He's the villain in that movie, The Dallas Buyers Club. That's about him, preventing people from taking alternative medications. Does that sound familiar? Yeah, exactly what they did during COVID.
Right now we're doing it. I was in Blount County yesterday for a police officer's memorial service, and an officer came up and said, my child suffers from a rare disease, and we can't get to this treatment, and can you put a bug in the president? I was like, well, sure, we'll try. And Trump's doing that a lot now with RFK. RFK Jr. people, they'll try to trash him, and that's fine. He's a tough guy. But a lot of those trials now are going forward, cancer and other things.
Yeah.
And that's another reason they don't like Trump. Man, you talk about, you got big pharma, you got big agriculture, and and a couple others, and they run the table, Joe.
Yeah.
They run the table, and I told somebody, and of course, big energy, oil, we get zero. I know it's a commodity, and I'm going to get lit up that oil's a commodity and the world market, but we get zero oil from Iran. Zero. We export oil right now, and yet the price is going through the roof. It's going through the roof because they can. And I always say, well, how does that gasoline in the pumps go up? That's been they've already been processed, already been paid for. How does it go up exponentially just overnight, 20 cents a gallon or whatever? And how does that? And if that's because it's a commodity, and Burchett, you don't understand, how come that quart of oil that you at the hardware store doesn't go up like that? Wouldn't it? It's processed oil. Wouldn't it do the same? And of course, diesel. Your first cut, I think, is kerosene. Then it's diesel. And I've got a diesel dually. I filled it up yesterday. Is over $100. It is the cheapest. It is the roughest cut. That's why you have these incredible filters, because it's dirty. And gasoline is the third or fourth cut, and it ought to be the most expensive, but it's not. I just think it's a racket. And every time they'll hold the hearings, and they'll come down there, and the oil companies will, they'll shake that money tree. They know how to do it on both sides of the aisle.
It happens all the time. I remember when Bush was leaving office, before Obama took office, where gasoline just went through the roof. The price, everybody was freaking out, and no one could explain it. And it was just, I was like, look, they can. This is like the last chance they can to just jack up the prices, jack up the profits, hold everybody hostage. You have to get gas. You got to drive to work.
Got an oil man in the White House.
Yeah, and they just jacked it up.
It's payoff time.
Yeah.
I just and I'm a capitalist. I'm a heartless capitalist. I make skateboards.
You make skateboards?
Yeah. It's cheaper than a psychiatrist. I guess I'm a little bit like Trump. I like ketchup on my steak, although I think he gets his well done. I get my medium rare. But
you put ketchup on your steak? You should go to jail.
Does the Baptist church got a bus?
That's terrible.
Yes, they do, and yes, I do.
Terrible.
Anyway, no, I make skateboards. So I make this crazy skateboard for Tulsi Gabbard. She's a buddy of mine. She's kind of a.
I love her.
I love her too. She is wonderful, and she's from Hawaii. So in Trump's first.
Oh, that's
there it is. Oh, okay. I made that skateboard.
Your Bigfoot skateboard?
Yeah, well, I put my sticker on it. It's made out of bamboo, oak, and banana fibers off the banana plant.
Oh, wow.
And she outs me during the Trump's first. There's my guys at Pluto Sports. They put my wheels and trucks on. It's just they're guys I was in high school with. But
Can
anyway,
you skate?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But I don't do the fancy stuff.
You don't do tricks?
And not anymore. I'm 61, dude. I don't heal like I did when I was 51, much less when I was a young man.
You're only a few years older than me.
Well, you look good.
Thank you.
Sorry, man. I'm just, people think I'm on steroids, but I'm naturally this huge. So Tulsi says, Burchett. I said, hey, Tulsi. She says, as she's walking in there to State of the Union, cameras, people are around. Where's my dadgum skateboard? My birthday's next month. I'm like, oh, crap. So I make her this skateboard, right? And that picture comes out. I mean, people all over the world are saying, where can I get a Burchett board? Where can I get a Burchett board? So I'm I'm trying to be ethical and I go down to see the ethics guy, and this little attorney tells me, he says, well, Congressman, you can't do that. You can't call it a Burchett board. You can't, I said, well, my wife's got to own the company. And they think, well, maybe. And then, but you can't work there. And all this other stuff. And everybody down there's got a side hustle.
Right.
And I've said, dude, so you're telling me I can do insider stock trading, but I can't sell a dadgum skateboard? And the guy said, that's correct. So anyway, I got about 35 skateboards in my barn. I just keep making them. And I call my attorney.
You make them yourself?
Yeah. That's why I say it's cheaper than a psychiatrist.
So you make them by hand?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, wow.
I have.
That's pretty cool.
I make them. I'm cheap. But so I make them out of bamboo that I cut. Buddy of mine, Chris Pointer's got a bunch at his house, but I go to the synagogue, behind the synagogue on Kingston Pike. There's a bunch of bamboo, and they used to let me cut it. Now that when this airs, they probably won't. But and then I get oak pallets and banana fibers that grow off the banana plant. So, but anyway, I grow those.
And you just laminate it all?
Yeah. Well, I used fiberglass with that, and I'm trying to get away from the carcinogens. The cancer causing. So I use Type Bond 3 glue. It's waterproof and water based, and then I just sand them all down, and because you scuff them up after you ride them around anyway. So I make them out of that, and I laminate the wood. And the steel laborers, they needed a project one year when I was mayor of Knox County, and somebody said, hey, these guys want to make a skateboard press. They said, do you want one? I said, yeah, I'll buy the metal. And I'm thinking, they're going to build me this little thing. No. I mean, it's like 3 burly union metal workers have to put this thing in the back of my dadgum pickup truck. It is a monster, and and I can press them, but and I've got clamps, and I do all of it. But anyway.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's a cool hobby.
I can't sell them. My wife's like, what are you doing out there? And I said, well, come out there and look at my boards, honey. I'm making skateboards. And I'm saying, and she always
look at you out there.
Yeah, that's one. That was this one I laminated up, but or it's side laminated. But
that's
my wife always
cool.
says, honey, you go to it. She says, I'm sure they laughed at the guy that created the pool noodle. That's her line. Always.
Probably,
my wife
right?
Kelly said, oh, yeah. It was just a piece of insulation off some old rental house, and he threw it, and his kids were swimming with it, and he thought, man, I'm going to take that 12-cent piece of foam, take it to Walmart and sell it for $6 a piece. And now he's probably sitting on some island somewhere laughing at us right now. But no, I make them, and I've been trying to. Anyway, it's very frustrating. I got a meeting with the attorneys and the chairman of the ethics committee, who is a really good guy. He and I came to Congress together, and we're trying to work it out.
Well,
so
it's not even that it's a lot of money in handmade skateboards. Like,
no,
the fact that you could have insider trading, you can't sell handmade skateboards that's ridiculous.
A little ridiculous, isn't it?
It's like What? Because you're famous? Because you're on television?
Somebody's gonna, they're gonna sway my vote because they bought a dadgum skateboard from me. Yeah, I took one to an auction and I think somebody paid $5,200 for one of those dadgums.
Whoa!
And then some other guy comes up and says, "Tim, I was at the bar and I missed it. If I give them $5,200, will you make me one?" So I got a couple, and then my friends in Claiborne County, the mountains up there, they chair the committee, and they asked me, and I thought I was making one, and then when I got out of there, I was making three. So I don't know. And then people just like them, and they put them on their wall. I mean, you're not going to be in the Olympics with Tony Hawk's not going to go, "Hey, Tim Burchett, will you make me a board?" But it's just for cruising down the sidewalk kind of thing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It sucks that they won't let you sell it, though.
Yeah. You sell your soul, but I can't sell a skateboard.
Speaking of selling, you were telling me earlier before we started, and I said save this because I want to talk about this later.
Yeah.
That the Taliban gets how many millions of dollars a week?
About $40 million a week. It all happened. I was on a podcast, and they were talking about it, and Sean Ryan, and I love that dude. Yeah, great American. I love him.
Good man.
He's a good Christian man. He's been through it. He's an incredible guy that they've asked to do horrible things. And people like that, I give them a wide path. I let them slide on a lot of things. But he's a good daddy, and he worries about our country. He reminds me a lot of my dad, because you couldn't wake my dad up to the day he died over the top of him, always by his big toe, because he might wake up on one of those islands and pin me against the wall.
Right.
He's a Marine on Peleliu and Okinawa, and
yeah.
Daddy's colonel was a guy named Chesty Puller, Colonel Puller. You can look him up. He was a Marine Corps legend, and my daddy loved him. But anyway, I'm on this podcast with Sean, and he says, "Hey, I want you to introduce Eli Crane. He's a Navy SEAL in Congress." He said, "I want you to go on this podcast with Sean Ryan." I said, "I don't know who Sean Ryan is. I'm not a podcast guy. My daughter always, give me your phone." I don't know how to do it. And all of a sudden I got a cool picture of her on there. I don't even know how she did it. But so I'm on there, and he calls me and says, "I want you to meet with this guy." He goes by the name Legend, and that's not his real name. But he comes into the office, and he can't use his real name. And says, "Look, they're getting $40 million a week." I said, "Who is?" He said, "The Taliban." And he's a Afghani that fought for us, and so he's dual citizenship. I talked to the last democratically elected president of Afghanistan through him on a call, and he's a dear friend, and he comes by all the time, and we talk, and so John Stout in my office, he's the best. I mean, this guy. His mom and daddy were in a very tragic car accident, and they prayed through it, and they both lived. I mean, Daddy had to get, he was banged up, and his mama's head got banged up pretty bad. And John's he is the quintessential staffer because he's so loyal and he loves this country. And so he said, "Boss, I think I got an idea." I said, "All right." So he figured out this monitoring thing where what they do is they send pallets of cash to them through whatever, and there's 3 banks over there that are owned by the Taliban, and everything goes through them. The Lord takes 10% with tithe, but the Taliban takes a hell of a lot more. They take it right off the top and on ingress and egress. If you give them money or take money away, or if you spend money or put money in or whatever, you take in or pay out, they get their cut off of it every dadgum time. And so I'm thinking, this can't be right. So I got a memo on my desk from the State Department. It's stamped classified, so I can't talk about it. But then it's stamped unclassified under it, so I can talk about it. And it basically said under the Biden administration, they think we gave them $5 billion with a B, $5 billion. Now, and you've got NGOs. Now, how many NGOs you think operate over there?
Oh, how many?
Over 1,000. And then you throw in the United Nations.
Out of Afghanistan?
Yeah.
There's 1,000 NGOs?
It's the biggest scam. NGOs, I wrote a letter to the president months ago, and they've tap the brakes on the NGOs. I mean, some of them don't have any money, and some of them got a lot. But Elon Musk told me, like I really know him. I mean, I hung out with him a couple times and we talked. Called me Tim, which I thought was pretty cool. But he says, Tim, here's how these NGOs work. He said, they start out as a good organization, maybe during Bush 1 or Bush 2. A lot of those limousine liberals, do-gooders, they start these organizations. And they set them up and to do, feed the starving children or whatever. Well, they don't have any money in them. And some billionaire who we all know, you can just name them, they'll drop $1 million in one of those. And then this unelected bureaucrat in Washington, D.C. says, hey, they got $1 million. This place is legit. And so they give them money. They put the money in there for them. And then they start running federal money through that, yours and my tax dollars. And he told me he thinks they stole over $1 trillion. And I thought, at the time, I thought that was crazy. But then I start looking at what happened in Minnesota, $19 billion. Joe, when I went to state legislature, our state budget of Tennessee wasn't $19 billion. It was years ago, and so it's a lot more than that now. But that's the amount of fraud and waste and abuse that go on. Well, so backtrack to this deal. So I get involved with it, and it's just unbelievable. It took me I passed the bill twice. And the second time, my buddy John Stout in the office there, he comes up with an even stronger version. And so we send it to the Senate. And so we find out that there's a Senate staffer that somebody said he's like the unofficial ambassador to Afghanistan. I've literally read where he said, appears to me, complimentary things about the Taliban. Now, those people want to kill us. As I like to say, they'll hate us for free. We don't need to give them any money. Well, it's like pulling teeth through my committee. The Democrats raised ruckus, and because obviously they don't want anybody looking at those NGOs. And the NGO money, now get this, it maybe a little bit goes to feed some starving kid, but a lot of it gets washed, and it goes back to the good old United States of America. Are you familiar with dark money and campaigns?
Yes.
Folks back home, the day before the election, the People for American Justice approved this ad. Did you know Tim Burchett, pushed his second-grade girlfriend down in a mud puddle and never apologized? That's what happened, and then
right.
Paid for by the People for American Justice,
Right.
And then, but what's happened is that money that you're sending over there is coming back in the form of dark money. And we've got, and I think both parties are involved with it at some point. I think the Democrats have had a run of it, and they've got it pretty much closed. They've got a pretty good market going on it, in my opinion. And there are probably some Republicans I think I know of that have some dark money too, and not necessarily from this, but from other things. And then you start talking about the UN. The UN has got, and everybody says, well, that's UN, Burchett. We don't have anything. Heck, we don't. We sponsor the freaking UN. If it was up to me, I'd pull out of the dadgum UN. They are nothing. All they do is get Americans killed. They talk ugly about us, and then they take our dadgum money, and we let them do it because crooked politicians are in bed. Washington is crooked as a dog's leg, Joe, and this bill makes them report it and follow the money so we know where it's going. And if it's going to the Taliban, it's out.
Can you just explain to me how they would justify sending money to the Taliban, and what is the circumstance? Like, how do they
justify it by saying it doesn't happen? They justify it by saying it doesn't happen. But I'm talking to this guy Legend, who's got people on the ground, and the people over there, the freedom fighters, saying, please quit sending them money, please. And when we left over there, we left how many billions of dollars worth of armaments on the ground. They said, I heard Democrats saying, well, those people can't fly those high-end choppers. Well, you know who could? The dadgum Chinese who were on the ground before we got out of there.
Right.
So it's just a crooked game. It's a small portion, I know.
But explain, how's the money getting to them?
Okay, it is sent to them through these NGOs and other organizations. And so
we fund the NGOs.
Correct.
The NGOs send money to the Taliban. Why would they do that?
Because they get a cut off of it. They don't care.
Okay, so the Taliban gets $40 million, and then they send that money back.
Some of it comes back, and some of it doesn't.
But as long as they get a piece of it, they don't care how much the Taliban gets.
Right. This requires a report on any cash assistance programs in Afghanistan and how the U.S. keeps the Taliban from assessing that. And it requires a report on the Afghan Fund and the Afghanistan Central Bank. And these reports, of course, would shed light on the Taliban's influence over the Afghanistan Central Bank. And you can research it. A lot of it is these do-gooder programs. You know, oh, man, we're taking care of the orphans. We're taking care of this. And you know good and well they ain't taking care of any dadgum orphans. They're stealing the money to do it. And it just infuriates me. And then I hear them say, well, it's not happening. I say, well, if it's not happening, then dadgummit pass the bill. What's it hurt?
Right.
What's it hurt? We pass worthless legislation every dadgum day. And, you know, and I can't get a peep. I said to Thone when he came in when King Charles was in, which was kind of funny, too. I had a funny conversation with King Charles.
By the way, no kings.
I'm not a
Remember
king.
that?
Yeah,
No
yeah.
kings?
What about that? I was kept looking. I said,
Everybody
hey,
cheered?
what the heck, guy?
There's a picture
of
posted
me.
by the
I did a video on my X account at Tim Burchett. See, I threw that plug in. But
Central Bank of Afghanistan said it received another injection of $40 million in cash this week. And this is literally $100 bills in stacks. Is that real? Is that a stock photo, or is that them showing a photograph of the money they received? Because I can't imagine they're sending bricks of cash.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's pallets. It's called a pallet of cash.
What?
I'm reading through this explanation of it from these reports. It's he's saying exactly what these are all saying, but this is a lot of
And I'm not as look.
explanation in here.
I got a
Seriously
mutual
said it all.
fund. I don't understand all the money, but when I see here $40 million going overseas,
But in cash, too, is crazy.
there's no
You can just
record of it.
Take
No.
it and divvy it up and...
Yeah, this says
We
like
print it every day.
The UN is responsible for purchasing, transporting, and transferring at least $2.9 billion in U.S. currency to Afghanistan. This is from 2024, I think, when this was printed. So that they have to find the cash on, you know.
Call your senator and say, I want this
That
dadgum bill
is
on the floor.
Crazy.
It's past the committee, and it was like pulling teeth. It was because apparently I offended somebody, which I'm sure I did now. But
I don't understand why anybody wouldn't recognize that giving money to an organization that hates us, a fundamentalist religious organization that
they're
hates
not a
us.
religion. They're not a religion. They're a cult or
Yeah, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Since its first cash shipment, UN has made at least 80 purchases of cash for transport to Afghanistan. 80 purchases of $40 million. The UN reported that it began purchasing and shipping cash because of Afghan's banks' inability to participate in international wire transfers and Afghanistan's lack of domestic currency circulating throughout its economy. Oh, so we got to help them out and give $40 million a week.
yeah.
to
And the
people that hate
starving
us.
kids are still starving. The little orphans aren't being taken care of.
that's
And they're still
so-
throwing gays off of buildings and poking little girls' eyes
Are there any
out.
gays left? I mean,
Well, they got to be in the closet.
They are in the closet. There's a lot of that. A lot of pedophilia. I have some buddies that served over
Yeah,
there. They
they
told me
got
some horrible
This
stories.
guy wanted to. Yeah, a guy was going to frag a Afghani general or something one time. He told me, and he used to work for me. And he had mental issues over it.
Oh, it's horrible. Yeah, I've heard horrible stories. It's
So
just
my dad wouldn't go back to Okinawa because if I can digress quickly, Daddy went back for the 50th anniversary of the invasion of Peleliu, and I said, you gonna go back to the 50th? Because those Marines, that's not a lot of those guys are left, and they're all gone now. But he said, I ain't gonna go back to Okinawa. And he told me this story. He said they came over this hill, and a Corsair caught a bunch of Japanese out in this field. Dad called it a lucky strike. Dad loved a Corsair. That thing dived at over 400 miles an hour, and he just lit them up, caught them out, obliterated them, and they run up on them. And they had been raping some of the islanders or Korean girls that they'd collected, and I think that messed with my dad. Of all the stuff he saw, blowing caves and shooting people up close, and that's what. And he said, I won't go into it because I got a daughter that's going to be watching this thing, but it was, and that's what scarred my daddy. You'd have loved him. He was my buddy. My buddy Chris Agard, he got a Acura for Christmas when it was a bright red Acura, and Acura's not made in America at the time. And Dad goes, Hag? He says, my daddy was a dean at UT, dean of student country. He goes, where's that thing made? And he goes, I reckon it's made in Japan, CB. And Dad goes, I reckon you're going to be parking that thing out in the street. Daddy just went back in the kitchen. Dad went out and moved his act out on the street. Nobody messed with my dad. He was, I remember the neighbor one time, she comes over here and said, somebody's in my house. And I was like, what? And I'm downstairs. And I run upstairs, and Dad runs by me with a Browning high power. I mean, he's probably 70 years old, and he was clearing that house. He ran in that house, and I remember Mom was on the phone and said, don't shoot my husband. He's in a blue powder leisure suit. Oh, man, he was something else. He was, Mama was something else, too. They were real Christians, so they weren't bumper sticker kind of Christians. People
That's
would,
awesome.
I would, and to this day, I love the Waffle House. You know, it's America's premier steakhouse. And I go in there, and I don't like eating breakfast food any other time than at breakfast, because I can always remember as a little boy, Daddy would always pick up somebody on the interstate. Somebody broke down, black folks, white folks, you know, anybody, and or some UT student that was having a little rough go, and bring him to the house. And there wouldn't be enough hamburgers for me, my brother, sister, and I, the 5 of us. But Mama could make enough breakfast, and I always knew that Daddy had brought somebody home, and we were going to be eating breakfast for supper, and that always ticked me off as a kid. You know, I didn't understand at the time, but now I realize I had pretty cool parents. So
That's awesome.
can I show you a cool picture of my mama?
Sure.
She flew an airplane during the Second World War. She was. I was hanging out with Kid Rock one time, and I'm going to use a little language here, Bobby, and I said, I know your thing is you're the American badass. I said, but I was raised by the American badasses, and I got pictures of Dad on Peleliu and Okinawa and with his Thompson submachine gun stuff. But here's my mama. Somebody colorized this. She's just a little country girl.
Wow.
And flying an airplane during the second. Her brother Roy, who was 33 years old, got killed in the hedgerows.
Wow.
She's a beautiful woman. They colorized that.
Crazy.
And I'm an
What a
unrepentant
crazy
mama's
picture.
boy.
That's a crazy picture.
Yeah, that's crazy. She got her foot up. And I've got a picture of my daughter. We were at the air show, and the guy had a biplane over there, and he wasn't going to.
There it is.
There it is. That's
Jamie
the black.
from-
Oh, thank you, Jamie. You're the man. But
you go, sir.
that's in Nashville.
Wow.
And it was National Women's Aviators Day, and everybody's showing all these pictures of these women. And I said, well, I'm going to have to one-up y'all. And I put that up there, and somebody sent it to me. I didn't know, just as a supporter, not even in my district, and they colorized it for me.
Wow.
And so I was, and that company that I can't read the name off of the parachute, but I think they're still in business. But anyway, that was in Nashville. You can see they're on dirt, and the crazy thing was when she qualified, I don't know how long you got to fly with an instructor before you solo. Well, they messed up. And they did it in half. They did the math wrong on it, which was crazy because Mama was a math teacher, but she was a country girl, and she's in it for the fight. And she's a lot like my wife. My wife is a fighter too. You don't get between her and anybody in our family. But Mama, she soloed in half the time that she was supposed to. And the war's going on, and I've still got her little log book. And they tried to redo the math on it, and it was wrong. But Mama Daddy said, "Yeah, I bet she cleared out a fence row when she landed." And no, but she was pretty cool.
It's got to be a terrible slap in the face of these people that served in Afghanistan to find out that the Taliban's getting.
My buddy Eli Crane, I just look over at him, and he's one beautiful human being. I love Eli Crane. He is my buddy, and lone survivor.
Marcus Luttrell?
Yeah, his brother is
Morgan?
Morgan, yeah, he's the catcher on our baseball team. And I was out there one day, and we don't actually practice in the best part of town, but we've got security everywhere because when they shot Scalise and all those guys years back, I feel very secure. And I heard this pop, 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 and this young officer, DC officer, said, Capitol policeman said, "It's okay, guys. I think it's fireworks." And Morgan took his hat off and goes, "Burchett, that was gunfire." And I thought, I'm going with what Morgan says. Yeah. I'm not going with what this guy up here says. They never fired a shot in anger. And I love those guys. They're wonderful people. And I do too. I hurt for them. I used to hurt for my daddy because he'd talk about China. They went to China after the war, and he fought the communists over there for a short while. And then before he left the Marine Corps, but how we just turned them over, and that he would talk about that, and he would be visibly upset and walk away because of that. We want to get these wars over, and we don't deal with the repercussions. We don't deal with the repercussions of we got warriors that we need to heal, and we got to, and it's just very frustrating to me.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, kudos to Trump for passing this psychedelics bill.
Oh, good gosh! I saw you on that. I love that. I talked because I didn't know anything about it,
Yeah.
and I asked some of those guys about it before, and they said, "Oh yeah, Burchett, one member confided in me that he, because he'd been in some of the mess, and I told him, I said, my daddy had anger issues and stuff. He never beat Mama or me or anybody, but
How could you not?
gosh, I know.
How could you expect? That's the crazy thing. You expect this of people to do horrible things and to see horrible things, and then to come back and just go to the grocery store.
Yeah.
Just be normal.
Yeah.
Just sit in traffic. Be normal.
I remember one time we were at a UT football game, and I was a little boy. I must have been 4 or 5, and Dad, we were on the 50-yard line. It was in the 60s, and they let you bring these cowbells, and it was the last game they let you bring cowbells to. I don't know, you can probably do it now, but back then and so this guy was sitting behind us, and he was drunk, and he took the Lord's name in vain. And my daddy said, "Hey," he said, "we got ladies down here." My sister, who was probably 7 or 8, and my mama was there. And the guy said, "Okay." And then the guy spilled his drink on my dad. And my mama grabbed us all as kids and just rushed us out. And I remembered, I was like, "No, what's Daddy doing?" And the UT cops, they loved my daddy because he was Dean of Student Conduct. He always backed them up. And they come running down the aisle. And literally my dad beat these guys' ass, all 3 of them, right there on the 50-yard line at Neyland Stadium. And I was just a little boy, and I was like, he didn't give high fives back then, but if I had, I would have given him because he was pretty incredible guy.
Well, a guy has been to war like that man had, and you come back and
it wasn't any different than thousands of other of his buddies. They would get together and talk about stuff, and I, we didn't drink in the house. My mom and daddy didn't let me have a beer can collection. And Daddy's buddy Red Welch came over, and Red drank beer at the dinner table, and it was in the 80s. I was getting ready to go to college, and that was still no beer in the house, and Red was drinking beer. And I said, "Daddy," I said, "what's the deal with Red drinking beer?" And he said, "Buddy," he said, "you get pinned down on one of them islands, and you're gonna leave this earth pretty soon. There's one guy that comes running for you. He can do pretty much whatever he wants to in your house." And that was Red. I found an old picture of him and Daddy in China the other day. But yeah, Daddy had a great life though. He had a great life. Him and Mama are both buried at Veteran Cemetery there in Knoxville. And to this day, I'm 61 years old. And if I go up there, I think about them and their sacrifice, and I cry like a baby. Because I go to that Capitol, Joe, and I see people that are just going to throw it all away. And to me, that is unforgivable. Unforgivable.
Yeah. Well, I'm very happy that some of these people that have experienced these horrible things have at least a pathway to relief now.
Yeah, and that is, and thank you for getting involved, brother. That was huge.
Well,
because I couldn't see that
Perry.
ever. Do what?
Thank Rick Perry.
Yeah.
Rick Perry and Brian Hubbard, because if it wasn't for them explaining to me what they've been through and how it's helped people, and all the other people that I know, like Marcus Luttrell was a friend.
Dude, it wouldn't have happened. I talked to everybody, and they said it wouldn't have happened if it wasn't been for you. You use that microphone for good, and I appreciate it because a lot of people aren't.
Well, I never asked him for anything
No.
up until that moment, and I was like, if there's a thing that I could do that might make the world a little bit of a better place. And the fact that those things were made illegal in the first place is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
It should have never happened. They should have been studied, and we could understand how they could help people, especially when you consider how many people are on antidepressants in this country.
Oh, it's epidemic.
Tim Walz's daughter, the guy who was running for vice president, his daughter just made a post on social media where she was talking about how she's been on them for 15 years and she's realizing that they're a real problem. And every time she's tried to get off, it's been devastating.
Yep.
And I know people that have also been on them that they try to get off them, like my friend Theo Vaughn. And the roof falls off. And like every time he starts talking about something that drives him crazy, I just got to kind of rein him in and just like calm down. Like, if you've had friends take their lives, and I've had a few.
I've had quite a few.
It's a horrible feeling when you think about it and you go, what could I have done? What could I have said? How could I have?
And so much so we don't know. my oldest friend in the world, a guy named Scott Davis. He and I were at Little Red Schoolhouse together. His brother took his life, and he suffered from depression, and this was in the 80s, and we didn't understand it. You know, I was with a guy yesterday, one of his best friends, Ben Testerman. He was telling me, you know, I talked to him. I came home. He was a professional tennis player, and he came home and was talking to Jeff, and he said, he said, I just feel like I'm in a hole. And nobody gets that. And people will say to him, I hear people all the time say, hey, just get over it, man. You know, go for a jog. And there's some freaking chemical imbalance that we don't understand. Something has happened that's jarred them that we don't understand. Right. And that is if there's one avenue that gets it, you know. But Big Pharma, again, Big Ag, Big Pharma, it's like hemp.
Yeah.
Why the hell are we not growing hemp?
Right.
It just drives me crazy.
It drives me crazy as well. It doesn't make any sense, especially when you find out all the stuff that is legal. It's like, have some consistency. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense.
How many people do we lose every year? And a lot of my friends are in the alcohol business, but it's a personal responsibility issue with me. You know, if you do it, it's your business. But if you break the law, you know, you're going to the hooch cow.
Yeah, and listen, I'm not a big drinker, but I think you should be allowed to drink. I don't think there's anything wrong with being allowed to smoke cigarettes. If that's what you want to do, you should be able to do it. I believe in freedom. But I think we should be consistent. And the fact that there's these things that could help people that are suffering from depression, that are suffering from opioid addiction, that are suffering from all sorts of PTSD and CTE, and that we have this thing that we've known about for decades, and the only person that had the courage to try to push an executive order is Trump. And if I help that,
he is enemy number one with a lot of those people.
Well, I mean, thank God he's got the kind of courage that he has to push stuff like that through, because
the guts.
It's going to change a lot of humans' lives, a lot of veterans' lives, a lot of first responders, a lot of police officers, a lot of people that have experienced violent crime. And it's going to change a lot of people's
women
lives.
that have been abused.
Yes.
And
all the above. Everything.
All the above. And they're not like going to be walking around like some kind of crazy zombies thing. It's a very controlled thing. And
especially Ibogaine. Ibogaine is not recreational in any shape or form. No one's taking it recreationally. I've never done it, but I've heard it's a terrible experience. But you come out on the under end of it. And Rick Perry was also talking about how he's experienced natural brain atrophy, being a man in his 70s.
Yeah.
He went and got an examination after he did it, and his brain atrophy had dropped by 25%. He went back in 6 months later. It was all gone. Just that alone.
Wow.
Think about all the elderly people out there that are suffering for memory loss and all these different issues that people have, that could fix them, and that it's literally just one experience that you have that takes 12 hours, and when it's over, you're better. That's crazy. And that we've kept this from people. There's no chance of people being addicted.
The money. Somebody
I
wants
understand,
to control
but at some point in time, we've got to be human.
Oh, I agree.
All these money people have to realize you only have a certain amount of time on this planet.
You need to shut them out.
And you have an opportunity to make the world a better place. And we got to say no to people that just want personal money. They just want personal funds that going to go to their money, that's going to go to their bank accounts, going to go to their company, their corporation, personal benefit at the expense of who knows how many people, including literal heroes.
When's enough for those guys?
Yeah, when is enough? I mean, this is the same feeling that I have about this disclosure stuff. Like, I don't care what it's going to affect. I don't care. Like, if there's real things out there that we don't know about, you as a human being have no right to keep that from the rest of humanity. I don't care what your title is. I don't care what three-letter organization you work for. You're a human being, and you have an obligation to the other human beings to alert us. The fact that there's people that have, if this is real, and there's people that have gone to their grave with this information that would literally change the course of human history, that's a crime. It's a real crime.
Could you imagine the poor countries, the people that suffer, the deserts and things like that, if you could cool their huts or whatever,
right?
And we get out of these worthless wars, which are over oil all the time,
right?
And it would end it all in just a stroke of a pen, almost.
What do you think it is? Like
I go back and forth. I know it's a little crazy, and this will probably cost me election because they've tried to use it against me in the past.
It will only help you at this point.
Well, I think we need to look at these deep water areas. I have a hard time believing that something can travel light years in some suspended state. They have to be in some kind of suspended state. So I have a trouble with that. Those 5 gentlemen that came to my house, 4 or 5, that came to my house that time, they were talking about a moon that was around Saturn or Jupiter that they'd done some testing with that they think would be capable of something, and the moon was larger than our Earth, of course. But
there's a moon that's larger than our Earth?
Yeah, around Jupiter or Saturn. I
that
believe.
Doesn't make any sense. I don't think that's correct.
Well, maybe I'm wrong. Check it out.
Yeah, no. There's no moons that are larger than a planet.
No, it's not.
I don't think so. Our planet.
Well,
I don't believe that's true.
Circles around it. I don't know. Anyway, I'm wrong.
Is that accurate?
Oh,
Do I not know about this? Yeah, but there's not. I don't believe there's a moon out there that's larger than our planet.
These guys seem to think that something could travel from there, and it was the quantum physics. After talking to that admiral, it makes me wonder if there is something in these deep ocean areas. That the old cliche, we know more about the surface of the moon than we do the surface of the ocean floor. In some areas, I think it's true because we're not down there.
Logically, that's the one place where we don't go, and it covers 75% of the Earth.
Yeah.
At least, right?
And if you wanted to hide, that would be the spot.
I mean, if you were monitoring humans, let's say that humans are on this path of technological evolution, and then they recognize that humans have split the atom, we've developed atomic weapons, and we've used them, and they want to make sure that we don't blow up the entire planet before we achieve some sort of enlightenment,
right.
Before we bypass whatever territorial primate monkey brain stuff that we have that's causing us to have all these wars and do all these things that we shouldn't be doing.
Stupid
and
stuff.
That we're on our way. We're getting better. We're clearly better than we were 1,000 years ago and better than we were 3,000 years ago. We're on our way to being a more advanced civilization, but it's possible that we could screw it all up at any point in time and blow ourselves to smithereens. I would imagine they would want to monitor us.
One maniac in Iran.
Yeah.
If they hadn't stopped their nuclear, I'm convinced that they were out for Armageddon. They'd have launched something. They had the capabilities to go all the way to England. I think if they put one close to Israel, it'd be over. And people like North Korea who have terrible technology on missiles, the biggest threat there was if they put one up in the air that the nuclear cloud could blow over China. And so that could have had some incredible bad repercussions.
Well, the fact that there's so many different countries that have nuclear weapons and we're just relying on these people to keep their shit together is nuts.
It's nuts. It's completely nuts.
Yeah.
And they're maniacs.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense that if you were a super advanced life form from wherever, that if you wanted to have a base, some sort of a base where you'd monitor us, it would be in the ocean. Yeah. You'd be right there. You could get out of it real quick and go to wherever you wanted to go.
Orbs was the thing I was thinking of earlier. Orbs. That's the new word that you hear a lot of, and it's getting away from saucers and.
Well, there's a lot of weird stuff with orbs where people say that they could summon them.
Yeah, I'm not on that.
There's a friend of mine wants me to go and do it with her. She's my friend's wife is experienced it, and she's like, you got to try it. I'm like, oh.
Now that to me is.
I'll say who it is when she comes on the podcast next. I don't know. If I don't know. I don't have permission to talk about it. I don't know if she wants me to talk about it, but I'm like, okay, what do we got to do?
Be careful about the sex cult angle.
Well, she's not. That's not. I'm not worried about that.
I know you're a good-looking guy, Joe.
No.
She might be digging you.
No. This ain't that. This is not that. She's been my friend for 20 years. It's not. She's married to my friend. She has kids.
No, I'm saying the angle that they use.
Well, this lady's not that.
Yeah.
She's a comedian. This
is
not that. But there are a lot of kooky people that do have sex cults. The sex cults. Every cult turns into a sex cult, right?
Power.
I almost bought a building in Austin that was owned by a cult.
No, really?
Yeah. The original Comedy Mothership was the original location was a place called the One World Theater. The One World Theater was owned by this cult. And I kind of knew about it because Ron White told me about it because they had this theater that they built to so that their leader can perform in front of them. And then the cult got disbanded. There's a documentary about the cult called Holy Hell. And it's crazy. But it's a sex cult. There was a guy who is get this. He started out in California and he was a gay porn star and a hypnotist, which is a wonderful combination if you want to start a cult.
Like you do.
Yeah, and also a yoga teacher. So he starts out teaching these people yoga, and I don't know if I've ever taken yoga before, I've taken a bunch of yoga classes with a bunch of different instructors, and most of them have been amazing. But a few of them were very culty. And there's this one guy that I took classes from way back in the day, like more than 20 years ago. And he was in California, and he was sleeping with a bunch of the ladies that were there. And he was kind of like a cult guy.
Yeah.
Like he was like
they were following him
yeah,
and
he was
drug into it.
Singing stupid songs, but it was like very full of himself. It was gross. He was gross. And everything wound up falling apart for that guy. But
then he ran for Congress.
But there's a lot of these people that, for whatever reason, that's where it all boils down to. They want to have sex with everybody's wife, and they want to run at everything, and they want, run of the mill, and it's very strange. But
that's where the demonic stuff comes in with Christians when you call these things down.
Why do you think that has to do with sex cults? Why would the aliens have to do with sex?
I don't think it's the aliens. I think it's. I just think some people are abusing the people's. They think that they're using their belief in UFOs to draw them in and to some sort of thing. And
have you knowledge of this kind of stuff? Yeah,
I get all of it. I hear about all of it.
Can you name names? Can you talk about like?
Not on the air.
Okay.
I don't want to get sued.
Okay. So the underwater bases, or the underwater.
This is what an admiral told me. Okay.
So did he say locations that these things are coming from, or is there an actual physical base that they've observed?
He said that they don't have the capabilities to get down that deep, actually, but they did say that the sightings were happening in I think 4 of the 5 deep water areas around our world. And he didn't have any other, and then I was on talking about it, and somebody said, Tim Burchett says that they're underwater bases, and then, and they had, Gates was on the other day, and he was briefed. I just told what I was briefed on, and he was briefed by a guy that said, it was in uniform, that said that they were breeding, they were capturing people and breeding them with these aliens. And, he just talked.
What?
So, yeah, he was on, you can pull it up. I mean, Matt Gaetz, he talked about it. He didn't say he believed it, but, we get briefed on, that's what I'm talking about, the PSYOP. Here's part of the problem, too. They bring you information, and you go forward with this, and this is the truth, these underwater bases, whatever. And then they prove it doesn't exist, and then they just discredit you and they discredit the whole movement. So that's why I'm very cautious anytime anybody brings me any information or pictures or testimony or, third cousin's recollection.
Yeah. That is, the disinformation thing is a problem. They'll tell you some truth and mix it in with some really kooky stuff, and then you say the kooky stuff along with it, and the kooky stuff just discredits everything that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Lazar talked about that too. He said they would tell people certain things that weren't true, and they would tell different people different things that weren't true. So if the story got leaked out, they would know who leaked it. It was like a hook. So that anchor would be like, oh, that was Mike. Mike told the story.
That's when I always warn our other members when we go into the skiff and talk about stuff that that's the first time I've ever heard that one, or that's sort of what we heard the last time. And then I said, everybody just be real careful with it, because if it gets out, then they'll come after you, or they want it to get out so they can discredit you and make you look like a fool.
So they talk to you about deep water areas where sightings occur. And so it's just a presumption that somewhere in that deep water they're emanating from, that they're...
Well, he described...
It is Gates claims whistleblower told him of alien-human hybrid program. The alleged program involved captured extraterrestrials mating with abducted humans from war zones and migrant caravans to create hybrids for intergalactic communication. He claimed the whistleblower identified between 6 and 12 such facilities in the U.S. and sought coordinated congressional visits to prevent relocation of the activities, though Gates did not verify any of the information. How could you? You got to talk to the hybrids?
Yeah.
Also,
I just want to go to the T-shirt shop.
Yeah, the pastors thing that I sent you, Jamie, is
that's
bonkers. What do you think about all this?
I don't buy that. I don't.
So this is a guy. It says his name is Alan Dido.
Yeah.
And it's weird. Capital D, lowercase I, capital D, lowercase I, O.
Didio.
Didio? After sitting in a private meeting with pastors and those connected to these investigations, the message was clear. UFO and UAP disclosure is coming. Pastors must prepare their people now. Silence is not an option. Well, what does that mean? Like, what are they preparing the people for? Like, what? Why would they bring in
pastors I've never heard of?
You think it's BS?
I do. I think it is. I think if he'd have brought anybody in, he'd brought Franklin Graham in.
Is this gentleman a pastor himself? Click on his.
Yeah, he runs. Well, I mean, he also has a show, which is.
Of course he does.
Of course he does. Oh, so his show is about disclosure?
The Revival Nation Church or something. No, I don't know that. This is just what these clips are coming around.
Can you click on his bio, please? Like what it says? Equipping end-time believers for the next great awakening. Oh, yeah. Boy.
I would warn people that think we're in the end times. The Bible is pretty clear about that. It says that the angels in heaven don't even know
when the end times are.
When the end's coming. So,
yeah. Well, I'm always very suspicious of people that say the end times are coming. I remember when I was living in L.A., there was a billboard. Do you remember those billboards, Jamie? Where there was the guy was like saying a very specific date where the end was coming, the rapture was gonna, and then it didn't happen. He's like, I got some bad information. It's coming soon.
Yeah, I did my math wrong. I remember. I see those all the time. I just shake my head. It ain't happening.
Yeah, that's the guy. May 21st, 2011. Cry mightily unto God. Judgment Day. Oh boy! And it's look at the gold stamp. The Bible guarantees it. Yeah. By the way, I read the Bible. I never read anything where there's a guarantee of this day.
Yeah.
May 21st, 2011. Yeah. So when they tell you things, is there anything that they tell you that you could tell us? Like, how much of what they told you is like completely top secret that you're not allowed to say until they disclose it?
A lot of it.
A lot of it.
Yeah.
Is there anything that really disturbs you?
Yeah. We had one meeting and it got into some stuff that they were talking about and the treatment of people and the capabilities. And this was
the treatment of people by these supposed extraterrestrials?
No, by our own government, but that we're trying to come forward with this stuff. But also, yeah, they told me some pretty creepy stuff. So I would, again, I bring this out and then they're busting my ass for it. But
what do you think is going on? I
think it's a cover up. I think there's something else out there. I do not think we're the best that God can do, and I really just don't know, Joe. There's so many options it could be. One of these groups that met with me, they described several different types of beings, and they go through all of them.
How many different types of beings?
I don't know, 3, 4, 5. I don't know. It just changes. I don't get caught up in that. And I tell our guys, I say, look, here's the argument. Just say, I just want to know what we're spending tens of millions of dollars on. That's all. I don't care if I don't. It's not about little green man. It's not about flying saucers. It's what are we spending this money on if they say they don't exist? That should be the answer, the question, and the answer will come from that.
Okay. So if they do exist, when you say you think it's a cover-up, what do you think?
I think they really do exist, and I don't think that there's such a finite group of people that actually know it, and you got a lot of charlatans out there that say they know it, and they're out there they're selling memberships.
Of course,
but I think there's something to it.
I'm always very suspicious of anybody who speaks definitively about something like that, where you can't possibly know, and then they don't offer up any proof of this.
And they say, "Well, I've seen the pictures." Well, bring me the dadgum pictures.
Yeah,
but I have seen some pictures, and I have seen video, and I have.
What's the most convincing thing that you've seen?
I don't know. Those guys came out the house. That was pretty convincing. That was before the hearings that we had.
How clear was the video?
Clear as a screen. I mean, it was pretty clear. And that was pre-AI. AI was such a new thing, and then it fit in with what the Tic Tac videos were, and the heat signature is what I always thought was unusual because it had to have a heat signature, but it didn't.
Right.
It's a 0 point energy, whatever that is.
Right.
And then the quantum physics angle of it is mind-blowing to me.
And you have no knowledge of what's supposed to be released because today's Wednesday.
I'm going to know tomorrow at 3.
tomorrow at 3 p.m. Is that when the
Allegedly.
world knows?
No, I think they're going to ask me, just give me a little bit of it. But I got a feeling they're not going to tell me much. I got a feeling they're not going to tell America much.
When is it supposed to be disclosed this week? Whatever they're going to disclose?
I don't know.
You
I don't
know.
know. But if they're going to disclose it to us, then it'll be out right as soon as they hang up the phone with some guys.
Do you feel an obligation, if they don't release it, to try to tell people what you know?
I do. I think it's because I don't like it if they're lying to us. And again, I don't think Trump knows. I mean, these people have kept this stuff secret. Here's another thing. I was in one meeting, and a guy said, what about the president on this? And he said, the president's on a need-to-know basis. Now, that's a federal employee saying that he or she has information that the president is not allowed to see. And I just was aghast, man. I said, that's the kind of crap you see on the Sci-Fi Network or something.
Right.
But that'd be the title of my book. I mean, that ought to tell you right there that this thing is a cover up. And it's kind of like MKUltra. I don't think we're going to get they're not going to tell us everything. I really don't. I don't think they're going to give us half of what we should get.
But you think we're going to get something?
I think we'll get something.
Do you know Hal Puthoff?
Do what?
Do you know Hal Puthoff?
No, I don't.
Do you know who he is?
I thought you were how put off you are right
No.
now. I was like, how put off are you?
Hal Puthoff was in the documentary as well. He was in The Age of Disclosure, and
Okay.
he was a guest on the podcast. And one of the things that he told me is that during the Bush administration, they brought in him and a bunch of other scientists and thought leaders, and what was explained to him was that they are considering disclosure and that there have been visits of these superintelligent beings from somewhere else, that we have retrieved crashed vehicles, and that we have biological remains.
That's correct.
And we are talking about disclosing. We would like you to make a list of all the ways that it'll negatively affect society and all the ways that it'll positively affect society, and attach a numerical value to these things. And they all did it, and every one of them said the negatives far outweigh the positives in terms of the impact on government, the impact on the economy, religion, all these different factors, and how it would disrupt society. And in the end, they decided not to disclose.
Yeah, I've heard that many times. I just don't buy it.
You don't buy it?
I don't buy it. I mean, I don't doubt what he's saying. I know all those guys now that you mentioned it. I was in the movie, of course, and I met them all afterwards. But I just don't buy that. I think we should know. Let us know. Let us decide.
No, I believe that too, but I wonder what that meeting was like and whether or not they were being truthful to these people or whether it was a thought experiment.
Allegedly, when they told Jimmy Carter, he cried.
That's what I heard too.
Yeah. I won't go into all of it, but I was in a meeting.
What would make him cry?
I don't know. He's a very sensitive guy. But
I understand, but I mean, like,
he was also,
I cried when I saw Old Yeller.
Yeah, I did too. Still cry. But they, he had seen a UFO. He was on a Navy nuclear sub, and I don't know if he saw that when he was on the sub or not. I can't remember. But here he is. That guy was president of the United States, and
they told him something, and supposedly he cried.
And I was in the meeting, and that was brought up, and the guy that they were trying to trip up gave the date of that meeting, and he said, you can go to the Carter Library and pull up that date, and you'll know there's one person, they omitted their name, which who knows who that was, but they list the meeting and where he was when he got that briefing.
Wow.
So I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know either.
I don't know if that's true or not. They also say Nixon pulled up one night to Jackie Gleason's and took
I
him
know
out.
that story.
Yeah.
Well, Jackie Gleason built that crazy house in upstate New York. Do you know about that?
Do not.
Oh, you don't? It was
No.
for sale a while back. Jackie Gleason essentially built a UFO house. He built a house that looked like a flying saucer.
No kidding.
Yeah, it was for sale fairly recently, within the last few years. That's the house.
Oh, crap.
That's a house Jackie Gleason built after supposedly Richard Nixon took him. So supposedly the story was they were golfing, out drinking, and Richard Nixon's like, hey, you want to see some shit? And then he took him to see this UFO somewhere on some base. You know, the story is very vague. It's hard to tell what actually happened, but apparently people that knew Jackie Gleason said it profoundly affected him, and Jackie Gleason became obsessed with UFOs afterwards. And then he had this house built the shape of a UFO, which is, I mean, not evidence, but weird.
That's very weird.
Weird.
Yeah, and Nixon was a very serious guy. That would have been an interesting scenario.
Indeed.
But I just wish they'd show us everything.
Yeah, me too. Well, we'll see. We'll see what comes out this week. But thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate it. It was great to talk to you.
I wish I could get you to move to East Tennessee.
Why?
Well, we saved Texas ass, man. You know,
Did
Davy
you?
Crockett. Yeah, Davy Crockett.
Back in the day.
Yeah, he said he was in Congress and got beat. He was a state legislator, and he got beat in Congress. And he said, "As for let's see, his quote was, "As for me," he says, "For you all, you can all go to hell. As for me, I'm going to Texas." He goes to Alamo and gets killed, but he parlayed that into a Disney special, so he kind of evened out. Yeah,
sort of.
But
I'm very partial to Texas.
Well, all right. We're
really
low
love
tax
it here.
state. I know. Texas low tax.
I just love it here. I love a lot of things about Texas. I love the people. It's a fun place to be.
Yeah, my buddy Chip Roy, he's leaving. He's from down here. A bunch of these guys in Congress are down here that are leaving.
And they're going to Tennessee?
No, they're coming down here. He's
they're coming
for
down
AG
here.
down here. But no, they're all coming home. They're tired of Washington.
Yeah.
Well, that's Luttrell told me. I said, "Why are you leaving Congress, dude?" And he says, "I want to spend time with my family. My kids are growing up." And I was like, can't argue with that, brother.
Yeah, and the pressure of Congress, the pressure of Washington, D.C. is just so odd. I've only been there a couple times, but every time I'm there, when I leave, I'm like, yuck.
It's like when I used to we used to minister to a guy in prison, and when you'd leave Brushy Mountain State Prison, I called it that institutional smell. Whatever they used to clean that place, you just smell like it for you could smell it in your nose for days later, and that's Washington, D.C. It's more of a filthy smell.
Yeah, it's a weird place. I guess it's necessary, supposedly, but it's odd to visit. But I appreciate people like you.
Thank you, brother. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you. And I appreciate you
very
doing
much.
the right thing, especially for our veterans and on disclosure and all the other hot-button issues. And you got Hecklefish right there.
I do. Hecklefish.
He said
From
my
the
name on his
Y-Files.
show one time. Yeah, I love that show.
It's great.
He said my
Great
name one
show.
time. He said it wrong, but he's a Yankee, so I guess it's okay.
Yeah.
It's like Burchett or something. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Thank you very much.
Thank
it was
you,
awesome. All right. Thank you. Bye, everybody.